the door open a crack?
These creatures are extremely dangerous.
Get off the ground!
How nice to be sent to a famous loony bin.
My dear, nowadays nobody speaks about loony bins. The correct expression is rest home. Killing me is one thing, but why commit suicide?
Please control yourself.
Alex, this is Stefania.
Hi, Alex. Pleased to meet you.
Pleasure's mine.
I like being described as deep.
You're young, Stefania, and beautiful. Your whole life is before you.
I'm killing our feeling. He's cutting at the fucking pieces.
Hey, hey.
Hi, this is Russell Todd from Chopping Mall, He Knows You're Alone, and Friday the 13th Part 2, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
Indeed you are. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues, episode number 45, I believe, and I hope that little bit of Stefania Stella got you in a party mood. Yes, we're back off to Italy, and so get those black gloves back on. And we're going to cover two of the craziest gialli that were ever released, which is Slaughter Hotel and Fatal Frames. But before we get onto that, introduce you even to our fellow podcasters. We are missing Nathan today. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it to this one, but he will be back next time. But joining us, as ever, is Erik. How are you doing, Erik?
I'm good, thank you. I too like to be described as deep.
Oh yes. Well, we're getting onto the charms of Stefania, or Stefania Stella, whichever way, a little bit later. Joseph, how are you doing?
I'm well, and I have to go. An old case of mine had just reopened.
Indeed. Yes. Well, in case you're wondering what that's all about, they'll all become clear. Well, as clear as it possibly can get. But this is all giallo all the time, this episode, and we're going to be also covering our top 3 best giallo death scenes. That's our top 3, and also we were talking about recently seen coming up short. But this is one of our special shows. We've got 2 films, so and we've basically watched them, so you don't have to. But I know some of you watch along at home, and I hope you still haven't. Well, you still got eyeballs and you haven't clawed them out. But we shall get onto that in a little bit. So, guys, what have you been watching recently? How about you, Joseph?
Not a whole lot, but last night I watched Rosewood Lane. It's the Victor Salva film. And it's basically about a woman who is a radio psychologist, and her father dies, and then a year later she moves into his house, and then she starts being tormented by this sociopathic paper boy who actually should be a paper man because it's a 25-year-old playing like a 12-year-old kid. But I thought it was okay. I mean, it's sort of a creepier version of a Lifetime made-for-TV film, but I kind of felt it was missing something. I mean, a lot of it's a little too vague for its own good, and as per usual, the characters do a slew of really dumb things throughout. But, you know, overall, it's kind of suspenseful, has a few good jump scares, and I don't know, Victor Salva, I mean, I'm not going to go into his checkered past, but he has a way of turning these mundane plot lines into something a little more than they are. So, yeah, a marginal recommendation from me.
Okay. Yeah, not see it. Was that, I take it that wasn't a cinema visit?
No, I think it went straight to DVD. Or if it did go to the cinema, it was a very minimal release. So,
Okay, fair enough.
It's come out last year, I believe.
Okay. You're not seeing that, Erik?
No.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I mean, I've been a little kind of stymied here lately, so nothing of note.
Okay, yeah, no problems. Well, there's been lots going on, so how about you, Erik? What have you been watching?
Well, believe it or not, I have seen some new releases. I think this is the first time ever I've had, and I've actually got, I saw a film that's not out for another week. So the first one I saw was Resident Evil Extinction. For the life of me, I don't know why I keep going back to the Resident Evil films every time they come out, because I don't really enjoy them, to be honest. And this was more of the same, but I have to say it has the most stunning opening credit sequence I've seen for a long time. What they do is they replay the events of the climax of Afterlife, the previous film, but they show it in slow motion and in reverse. So it's kind of like it's very arty, and it's almost like a ballet. And you can really, really appreciate the 3D effect because the cutting is slowed down so much because you're watching it in slow motion. And I just thought it was really sort of breathtaking. But then, once the film gets going, it's just more of the same. It's very formulaic. It's lots of shooting. It's lots of Mila Jovovich jumping up in the air, doing somersaults and kicking people. Very, very little plot.
How lovely.
Actually, this is the one of the Resident Evil films that really, really feels like you're watching a 15-year-old boy playing a computer game, because what happens is Alice is imprisoned by the Umbrella Corp and she has to escape. But to escape, she has to go all through these different domed buildings that are replicas of major cities from around the world. So you've got a replica of Paris, of Tokyo, of Moscow, and they're all populated with clones of people. And the idea behind this is so the Umbrella Corporation can study the effects of the T-virus in large urban environments. But basically, it's just Alice going through various levels, kicking the shit out of people, and then getting onto the next level.
A replica of Grope Cunt Lane?
I think that's in the deleted scenes when it comes out on Blu-ray.
Okay.
And the extra version. In the
yeah. But I mean, the fact that they have all these cloned human beings populating these city mock-ups means that they can bring back characters from previous entries. So you've got two Michelle Rodriguez characters in the film, and I mean, it just doesn't make any sense at all. It's absolute pants. But
I haven't seen any of those movies.
Have you not? The first one isn't bad, but the rest of them are awful. And as I said, I keep going to see them. Now, the 3D was quite good, but apart from that, I can't recommend. Well, apart from that stunning opening credit sequence, which was really, really good. Otherwise, I wouldn't recommend it.
That's probably why you keep going back, isn't it, for the 3D, I would have thought.
Well, yeah, on Afterlife, the 3D was really impressive. So that's why I went back to this one.
I think they've gone, well, I mean, I don't think I've seen any of those at the cinema, but I think I caught them all on DVD or pay-per-view or something. And it's a bit like, I think, with the games, because I'm not a huge gamer, but I did really like Resident Evil 4, and I liked all the earlier Resident Evil games as well, like on the PlayStation way back when. And Resident Evil 4 was great, but I didn't play 5, and apparently 6 is just like an action game without any scariness or any kind of creepiness or anything that made the first games so good. So it's basically just like very formulaic. But it's funny, if you look at the box office for Resident Evil in the States, it didn't actually make that much money, but it makes huge amounts of money in some countries because it seems to make 4 or 5 times the amount of money outside of the States as it does in the States, which is why they keep on pumping them out, I guess. But I can't imagine Mila Jovovich is going to be able to do these for that much longer, is she? I mean, she must be knocking 40.
She must easily be, yeah.
Close, yeah.
Yeah, not that she can't do, but it's just, I guess it's just like a paycheck, isn't it? But
Eric, would you go see a Resident Evil Bearpocalypse if it were an all Bob Hoskins edition?
Yeah, and I'd go see it 3 times if it was in 3D.
God, imagine if it's in 3D.
What if it was in 4D?
Ooh.
That beer gut sticking out the screen. Can you imagine that?
Fantastic.
Yes, I thought you'd like that. So, anything else, Eric?
Yes, I saw Paranormal Activity 4. What happened with this one was my flatmate got an email from Universal Pictures saying, come to a screening of Paranormal Activity 3, which will include, at the end, exclusive footage from the upcoming Paranormal Activity 4. Now, she forwarded it on to me saying, do you have any interest in going to this? And I have this awful habit of scanning through emails rather than reading the details. So I thought it was a screening of Paranormal Activity 4. So I said, oh, yeah. And I went to great pains to rearrange other things so I could go to this screening. Yeah. And then sort of the day we were going, she says to me, you do realize this is a screening of Paranormal Activity 3. And I was like, oh, God, I've seen this twice already then. But what happened was we went to the cinema anyway, and Paramount lady comes out and says, haha, fooled you. We're actually going to show you an exclusive preview of Paranormal Activity 4. That you're one of only 3 cinemas in the world showing this at this very moment in time. So that was great. She said it was unfinished, which I think meant the sound mix and maybe the odd visual effect here and there. But I think for the most part, it was the finished film. I thought it was the worst of the series so far, but that's not saying it was bad, because I'm a fan of the series, I have to say. This is not going to win over anyone because it does everything exactly the same. It's very, very like Paranormal Activity 2. It's this family in a house, and it's the young daughter who the teenage daughter, who sort of cottons on that something weird is happening. What happens is it's kind of a direct sequel to the end of part 2, where, well, I won't give away what happens at the end of part 2 in case anyone doesn't know. But what happens in this one is a family moves into a vacant house. It's basically just a single mother and this creepy kid. The single mother is injured in an accident which we don't actually see, and so the creepy kid has to move in with the neighbours because there's no relatives, and then this leads to lots of weird things happening. The standout scene for me was one, I think you've probably seen, if you've seen the trailer you'll know what I mean. There's an Xbox Kinect, which apparently if you have it switched on and you view it through an infrared lens or night vision, it creates this sort of dappled light effect. And on a couple of occasions, you can see sort of the outline of this spooky figure walking around in this unusual lighting situation, and it's really quite creepy. But for the most part, the film is, scenes of quiet, sudden loud noise. And, for the first half of the film, the sudden loud noise is a false scare. And then for the second half of the film, it's not a false scare. I mean, it is really, really predictable, and it doesn't elaborate on any of the plot threads it's established in the first 3 movies at all. It really, really is treading water. And if I think they go on to do a part 5, which I'm sure they will, I'd like to see them maybe start with a clean slate or something, because this storyline they're going on with, it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. But I mean, I think
what's funny is that during the whole Saw fiasco, and I guess it's around Saw 5 or Saw 6, the first Paranormal Activity came out, and they're like, finally, a breath of fresh air to get rid of these Saw films. And now they're doing the exact same thing the Saw film's doing, just sequel after sequel every year, and the story is just kind of sinking lower into the ground with each.
Well, see, that's the problem, I think, because they're rushing to get one out every Halloween. The care isn't there, and they're, what they could really do with is taking a break of maybe 2 or 3 years between films and maybe doing something really interesting. Because I love the creepier aspects of the Paranormal Activity series are really, really good and really well done, I think. But I can't remember, Justin, I don't think you were a fan, were you, when we were discussing part 3 last year?
No, I liked it, yeah.
I'm the one who wasn't a fan.
Oh, sorry.
I thought 3 was the worst one so far.
Okay. Well, you won't like 4 then. I would definitely advise you to avoid 4, because 4 has long periods where nothing really happens.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I don't mind that. I just thought 3 was just... Whereas the first film, is really creepy. And the second film, I mean, it's pretty much a rehash of the first film, but it's pretty creepy too. I thought 3 explained way too much, especially toward the end when they started going back and kind of telling you how this entity came into the house and what its motives were. I just thought it was really over the top, and that just kind of lost me.
Well, I mean, this does more of the same, even to the point where, you're about 3/4 of the way through the film and you're like, oh, we're due somebody to be dragged around the house now by an unseen invisible force. And then, hey, presto, it happens.
And these people never leave the house, ever.
No, and they never, and the teenage daughter keeps showing them video evidence that something weird is going on, and they don't believe her. And it's an incredible product placement movie for Apple, because the family shoot all the fan footage is shot on either a MacBook Pro or an iPhone, and they have three MacBooks, one in the bedroom, one in the kids' bedroom, and one in the kitchen. And then
does Apple own Xbox? Or no, Xbox Microsoft is
Xbox is Microsoft, yeah. So they're covering all bases, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's actually some Coke product placement there as well. So.
Well, it's they're so cheap to make, aren't they? Those movies, that they're just kind of like manna from heaven to the studios. A bit like the Friday the 13th movies, where they bang those out year after year, which obviously we all love. But they were very cheap and they rolled into big profits very easily. So it's a no-brainer, isn't it? Especially when you have films like John Carter and Battleship and things like that, where they spend hundreds of millions of dollars on something and then they flop. If you're spending 10, 15, 20 million or however much these films cost, they're going to go into profit, aren't they? So they will keep making them, I'm sure. Did you ever see Paranormal Activity Tokyo Nights?
No, is that Paranormal Entity? Is it, or is it Paranormal?
No, it's a Japanese. I think it's an official Paranormal Activity, but it's.
All right, yeah, I know the one you mean. Yeah, no, I haven't seen them. Have you?
I've only seen one. I don't know if there's more than one, and it was okay, but it's more of the same. But it was linked to the American films because without giving any of it away, the story kind of involves a woman who is basically. She comes back from America after being in a car accident where she ran over the main woman from the first one. And then she's brought back the curse with her to Japan, which, of course, the irony of that being is obviously it's partly inspired by all the Grudge films and the Ring
it's the
films
Grudge in reverse, kind of,
Yeah, exactly. So, but it's all right. It's nothing special, but it's got a few creepy moments.
I saw Paranormal Entity, the one from Asylum.
That's
for an Asylum film, it wasn't bad, but it's not that great either.
No. And I think there's a spoof one out I saw advertised in Fangoria, but I can't remember what the title was.
Not another paranormal movie. I don't know.
No, it wasn't that. But it had a grainy shot of a video camera of a woman on a bed playing air guitar. It looked like,
right,
and it looked so hilarious.
Yes.
Oh.
So.
Actually, the best thing.
Let me look that one up.
Actually, the great thing about the screening, though, was we all got free laser pens that project the number 4 onto a surface. Okay. That was brilliant, yeah. Ooh. So everyone at the end of the film, I was thinking, this is a disaster waiting to happen. There's going to be people shining these laser pens at the screen all the way through the film, but they weren't. But at the end, they did. But that was fine with that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, no. Thanks for that, Erik. So you come on to the Hysteria Continues for the latest movie news.
Actually, I won't review them now because I haven't watched them yet. But I got 2 Arrow releases on DVD that aren't released till the end of October as well. It seems like an exclusive month for me for some reason. I ordered them direct from their website. The Night Child and Super Bitch, also known as Blue Movie Blackmail, both are direct.
You're getting famous, Erik. That's one of the perks of getting famous.
Well, no, I still have to pay for them. It's just that they arrived, because I ordered them directly from Arrow's website, they arrived a few weeks early. They're both directed by Massimo Dallamano, who did What Have You Done to Solange? So I'm looking forward to those 2.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't tell how many people I meet in the streets who say, "Hey, you're that guy from the Hysteria Continues."
I know.
Yeah, and you're like, please, I just want to live a normal life.
Yeah, I'm like, stop photographing me, paparazzo.
Actually, about 2 weeks ago, a guy saw Whoopi Goldberg here in Dublin, and he asked for her autograph, and she said, "Listen, do you mind if I don't? Because then I'll just be pestered for the whole day." So what he did was he followed her around and wouldn't leave her alone, so she had to call the police.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Gosh. Was that you?
What a great advert for this city.
Have you?
Was he drinking?
Anything else? Sorry. Anything else?
I have seen one other thing, but I think you're going to be discussing it.
Yes. Well, do you want to talk about it a little bit now? Because if we're going to be... to say Sinister obviously came out. In fact, it came out the cinema a week or 2 weeks before it did in the States. I think it's just out in the States this Friday, but it was out, maybe it was the Friday before, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I saw it Thursday night, and you saw it last week. Or you saw it after me, didn't you? Maybe you saw it on... I
saw it last weekend. We went to see it, yeah.
Oh, last weekend, okay. Yeah. So what were your thoughts on it?
Well, I didn't really know a huge amount about it going in, except that it was being publicised as from the makers of Insidious and Paranormal Activity. So I was kind of disappointed because it was getting quite good reviews. I thought it was a bit overrated. I think it suffered the same problems for me as Paranormal Activity 4, in that I thought the best parts were earlier on in the film, where people are analysing footage and they notice things in the background. I think that's far spookier than when sort of the explanations start happening. I thought the film was quite long as well. It's 1 hour 50. It did feel kind of dragged in places, but overall, I mean, I did really enjoy it, I have to say. And I didn't realize going into it, it's from the same director as Hellraiser Inferno. If I'd known that going in, I probably would have had lowered expectations. But no, I have to say it's good. I thought Ethan Hawke was excellent in it. A lot of people are complaining about the actress who plays the wife, saying she was a bit naff. I can't say I had that problem, but I thought the Super 8 footage that he finds in the attic, I thought was quite creepy and quite eerie. But once the film sort of leaves the Super 8 footage behind, maybe 2/3 of the way through, I thought it became quite predictable and a bit ho hum.
I think I liked it a lot more than you did, although you said you enjoyed it. I mean, I agree, it's definitely got its problems, and I know Joseph hasn't seen it, and probably a lot of people listening may not have had a chance to see it, so we're not going to spoil anything. But I thought it had moments of real kind of bone freezing terror in it, which I thought was done really, really well. Also, I thought the soundtrack was amazing. Christopher Young, who I believe he started, didn't he, with the Dawn That Dripped Blood? I think it was.
Yeah, you're right, actually.
But I mean, this was kind of like it was done. It was kind of. It reminded me of some music I used to listen to in the 90s. A kind of really kind of left field American kind of independent music, kind of indie music, kind of Fetus and all those kind of weird kind of, not industrial, but it's kind of pre-industrial, but or kind of creepy voices and slowed down voices in the background. And I thought the soundtrack was very, very effective. Without any spoilers, but it was, I think you're right, as it went on, it kind of relied a little bit on the cliches. Although, to be honest, everyone I was with predicted the ending, and I had a completely different ending in mind, which I think we can probably discuss maybe next time when everyone's had a chance to see it.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of the scenes I thought were really, really, really well done, and kind of achieved that real kind of, there was one scene in particular, which I'm not going to say what it is, but it kind of had the same effect on the audience as the one in The Exorcist 3, the corridor scene.
Yes, I know what you mean. I think I know the bit you mean.
Yeah, and there were a lot of jump shocks. In fact, actually, the one that seemed to make everyone jump the most was actually a plank falling over, which is kind of, which goes to show how I think the film had a real kind of dread throughout, a real good atmosphere. But there were kind of scenes in it. I agree, it was a bit too long. There were scenes in it with Ethan Hawke with his wife having an argument that just went on for about 5 minutes. It just didn't really add anything to the story and could have been cut down to 30 seconds. Things like that was a bit strange. But yeah,
I thought
really
it opened really impressively. I thought with that Super 8 footage of, this isn't a spoiler. The very first shot is of a family of 4 being hanged from a tree, and it has that, as you say, that eerie industrial whatever soundtrack on it. And I thought that was an incredible opening shot.
Yeah, I'll be interested to hear what you think, Joseph, when you get a chance to see it.
Well, expect a sequel, because Thursday night at midnight they had midnight screenings. It made $1 million just on midnight screenings. It made almost $8 million on Friday, and they're projecting a 25 to 30 million opening. So
yeah,
there will be a sequel.
Okay. Yeah, it's currently number 1 in the box office, even though the weekend take hasn't been fully calculated yet. So
okay, because it was opening against some quite stiff competition, wasn't it? What?
You said stiff.
Oh, for goodness sake. Well, as we...
Yes, that's a very good one. Wouldn't you agree, matron?
It's up against that one, Argo, which is that Ben Affleck movie, which looks kind of interesting.
Yes,
but his movies are more kind of art house now, so they don't really get all the box office.
No, but what I'm intrigued by is that apparently it's a true story of people who go in to pretend they're making an exploitation movie to get some hostages out of Iran or something.
Yeah,
I want to see it. It looks pretty good, actually.
It says it's declassified. Whether or not it's actually a true story, I don't know. But often they do say things are based on true stories, don't they? I'm sure Slaughter Hotel was based on a true story.
Fatal Frames.
Fatal Frames.
Well, yes. Right. Well, that was Sinister. So, yeah, go and watch it. It looks like everyone else is, so I wouldn't be at all surprised. Although I think they didn't make a sequel to Insidious, did they? And I think this is kind of almost the sequel to Insidious, because I think they were, although it's got nothing to do with the films, don't link at all, really. But I think they were talking about doing a sequel to Insidious, because that was kind of the sleeper hit, wasn't it, of last year?
Actually, I think they still are.
Are they?
Let me look that up real quick. I'm pretty sure they are.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Insidious 2, 2013. Yes,
okay.
they are.
Oh, they are. Because that was a real sleeper hit, wasn't it? Because it just kept on making money by word of mouth.
Well, they spent $1 million on Insidious, and then it racked in like close to 100, I think.
Yeah.
So
very, very profitable. But yeah, in a lot of ways, to be honest, I'd much rather see a film like Sinister making money at the box office than Saw 5 or something or whatever.
Or Resident Evil Extinction.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of there. It's good. I think we're probably nearing the end of the cycle of the Paranormal Activity films and all those kind of films. But I do kind of like that. That kind of going for the creep out rather than necessarily just the gross out. But that was Sinister. Talking of creep outs, another film I saw, which has just come out on pay-per-view in the UK and actually on Blu-ray as well, is a French film called Livid. And it's by the directors. I think it's 2 directors, and they did the film Inside with Beatrice Dalle, which was the kind of the slasher homage, which was the one where Beatrice Dalle is basically persecutes a pregnant woman. She basically traps her in the house and she wants to cut her baby out of her. And it was kind of like a homage to Halloween and Friday the 13th. You've both seen Inside, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen
Good
Livid?
movie.
Have you seen their follow-up, Livid?
No.
No.
Is it a sequel or is it just a follow-up?
It's a follow-up. It's not. I don't think it's nearly as good as Inside, but it's quite interesting. It's almost like an unofficial sequel to Suspiria. It has the same. It's almost. It has. But without giving anything away, I mean, basically the plot line is. A young woman gets a job as a care worker, and on the first day she's taken around various old people living in their homes with this woman who tells her what to do. And she goes to one place, and the woman says to her, "Stay in the car. This one's a difficult one." But her curiosity gets the best of her, and she goes into this massive mansion, and there's this really, really old woman in a coma in a bed. And the woman who's there, she says, well, yeah, she's been in a coma for years and years and years, but it's very rich, and there's rumours she's got treasure here. And she goes back, and against a better judgment, she gets talked into going back on Halloween night with two male friends to try and find the treasure in the woman's house. And then they break in, and then, well, basically, without spoiling it, things go very, very badly wrong for them. It's very effective, but it's a bit too weird for its own good towards the end. It doesn't really make a great deal of sense. So it turns into a bit of a fairy tale. So it goes almost into fantasy territory towards the end. But there's quite a lot of there's talks. It looks like it was hinted at a kind of a kind of a sequel in sort of. In some ways to the Three Mothers movies, and it talks about this because this woman was a dance instructor who was dance instructor, I think, in Berlin or wherever the Suspiria school was. So it's worth a watch, but it's not fantastic. But that's one. Another couple I'll just quickly run through. One was, I haven't seen it for years and years and years, is Grizzly with Christopher George, which is 18 feet of snarling terror, which is the kind of the Jaws rip-off with the grizzly bear. And it's on a really, really awful DVD. It was one of, those ones you used to get, and they're like real budget ones, and it looks like someone filmed it for a fish tank. And it was like that, but it's very entertaining. It's William Girdler's, who is probably his best movie. But it's got this grizzly bear. It's basically a slasher movie with a grizzly bear, and lots of point of view and lots of shots of huge brown paws coming in and ripping off arms and heads, and at the end, Christopher George does something unmentionable with a rocket launcher. Have you seen it?
I have, yes, I have. I have it on DVD, but I think
time ago.
I have it on an American DVD by Shriek Show. Is that the same one you have?
It's probably the better version because I've got it. It was on it's a UK disc, and it's widescreen, but it's really soft. The picture's really soft, and it just looks really bad. But I still enjoyed it. I mean, it's just that kind of the the 70s with there's a scene with a little boy playing with a rabbit, and the grizzly comes in and attacks him, and his mother runs out with a drawing pin. Not drawing pin, a drawing. No, it's a drawing pin. No, what are they called? Those kind of
hairpin, hat pin.
Not a hairpin. No, I'm thinking rolling pin. That's what I'm talking about.
So
rolling pin rather than a drawing pin. That would have been rubbish.
Drawing pin
weapon,
and a rolling pin are quite different.
They are. Yeah, it would have been a rubbish weapon, wouldn't it? A drawing pin. Take that out.
Well, if she was battling a fly or a daddy long legs, it might have been effective.
Well, exactly. But she doesn't. She rushes out, and then the scene is kind of like the kid's screaming, and he's being literally bear hugged, and then she's hitting the grizzly. And then you see the kid fall to the floor with his leg ripped off, and it's just kind of like the 70s for you. But that's why we love them, which is why we'll be getting onto Slaughter Hotel in a few ticks. And lastly, and now Erik, you didn't believe me when last time I said I was going to watch this, and I let Erik know that we had hired Dirty Dancing on Blu-ray. And I put it into.
I saw something about that on Facebook. From one of your friends, I believe it was.
Well, yes. Well, we put it in and it wouldn't play. And then we tried it in a different player and it wouldn't play. So I said to Erik, we were trying to watch it and we couldn't. And Erik was very upset and thought I was doing that on purpose. But we sent it back to Love Film and then we got it sent back to us. And so I eventually watched it about 3-4 nights ago. And Erik, well, how can I put it politely? It's not going to be a film I'm going to watch again anytime soon. I thought it was passable entertainment. It didn't do that much for me. I think I know you love it, so I'm not going to diss it too much. But I just kind of like the fact that it was kind of this kind of not musical exactly, but it was a the feel good movie fueled by a botched abortion, which I thought was quite funny.
That bit's always funny.
Yeah, that's funny. But
but do you not think it was just such wall to wall kitsch that it was just absolutely brilliant? No?
Well, it was kind of wall to wall kitsch. I mean, I like the fact that a lot of it's set in 1963, and they've got all this kind of all the 60s music, this great 60s music, and then they must have said, "Do you know what this needs? This needs more synths." And so let's get some of the worst recording artists of the day, the middle of the road recording artists of the day, to record some horrible power ballads that we can pump over the top of this.
I hope you're not talking about the Blow Monkeys.
Were they in that? I don't know. There's three songs.
They are in that, yeah.
Was it Jennifer Rush and I don't know?
No, Jennifer. God, I can't remember.
Oh, Eric, you said it's your favourite movie.
I've had to find out Bill Warrens and Jennifer Warrens and Bill
Gates, Bill Cosby.
Bill Withers.
Keep talking.
Anyway. I thought it was kind of it literally was. I mean, I know to be fair, it's kind of it was by the numbers, but I like the fact that a lot of the kind of the 60s, so-called 60s kids had mullets, and the main girl had a hairdo like a shaggy perm that no one in 1963 would have ever had, would they? And then
well, I'm not I don't watch Dirty Dancing for historical realism.
Well, but and also at the end where they have the big dance off or the big kind of they bring the Dirty Dancing into the kind of the mainstream, and the song they dance to is it's like a time warp, isn't it? Because they dance to a song from the 1980s.
Yeah, Bill Medley and Jennifer Warrens.
Exactly. So all I say, Eric, is it was fun while it lasted, but and I'm glad I finally seen it. It's another one I can tick off my bucket list, but it's not.
So you didn't have the time of your life?
No.
Did you dance to the beat of your heart?
No. But it was. But you said about the measure of a good film, Eric, is whether or not how many times you check your phone. Mm-hmm. And I was checking my phone quite a lot through Dirty Dancing, and I'm sorry. What can I say?
Yeah, well, I watched Nocturne the other night, and I had to turn the sound off and check my phone the whole way through it. So there.
Oh, Eric.
The movie is a little creepy because, Patrick Swayze's playing like a 30-year-old man and she's supposed to be a teenager and he's kind of romancing her.
And she's called Baby, isn't she?
Yeah, and the Family Guy did like a little joke on that I thought was funny where he confronts her father and he says, "No one puts Baby in a corner." And her father's like, "I do. I'm her father. She's a kid. You're a grown man."
Yeah. It was, yes, it's a film, Eric. I'll give you that. So.
I'm disappointed.
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
I thought you'd get some. I thought you kind of get some kind of cheesy kick out of it, but obviously not.
I kind of did a bit. I mean, I didn't. It just wasn't. Maybe I just wasn't in the right mood for it. I don't know.
Was it Stewart that said this is a load of horse shit?
Yes, I think that might have been his exact words.
Did you have any cocktails before you watched it?
No, but we had some great cocktails last night.
Like you were tagged or something on a Facebook post, like watching it with a bunch of friends, and then one of them said, "This is what a load of horse shit."
Yes. No, we weren't drinking cocktails. We were drinking cocktails last night actually, and we had a great one called James Bond, which
what's that?
Which is Carver and vodka and a sugar cube soaked in Angostura bitters.
What are Angostura bitters?
It's a kind of little bottle from Switzerland, I think it is, and it's poisonous. But but if you drink too much of it, it's not alcoholic. But if you put a few drops into cocktails, and it's kind of quite a bitter taste. But the basically turns the cocktail kind of browny red, and the sugar cube fizzes and bubbles at the bottom. All these bubbles come up. And it's called a James Bond.
Sounds
wow.
Yeah.
You're a wino who lives on the edge.
He's a wino who lives on the edge, indeed.
And we had, but I did prefer a Harvey Wallbanger. That was better. God, I think I can smell. I can smell a cat's just in a turd.
Ew.
That's probably too much information.
Are they not house trained?
They are, but I could hear the litter tray. You might be able to hear that back at home. The viewers, listeners at home, you might have heard that kind of. But I might. Do you mind if we take a little break? What would take a little break? And what we'll do is we'll play this little trailer for the Podcast Awards. And while I'm doing that, I'll go and take the turd out. So there you go. Hang on in there.
Hi, I'm Patrick from the Scream Queens Horror Podcast.
And I'm Justin from the Hysteria Continues.
We're here to talk to you today about the 8th Annual Podcast Awards.
The Podcast Awards recognise excellence in the industry in 22 different categories, ranging from business, health and technology,
to comedy, gaming and sports.
And of course, movies and TV.
And gay, lesbian, bisexual and transgender topics.
It's amazing.
It really is. But here's the thing.
The same people win every year.
They're syndicated.
They've got sponsors.
They've been around forever.
And have thousands of listeners.
Us little guys don't stand a chance.
It's just not fair.
So this year,
we're both fighting
back. This year, the Hysteria Continues
and Scream Queens Horror Podcast
have joined forces.
Formed an alliance.
United our fronts.
Matron, please.
Oh, hush you. See, I thought if we combined the voting force of our fans, we could get both of our shows nominated.
In different categories, of course.
We might just be able to topple some of these juggernauts who don't have the decency to step aside after all these years.
You know, we get it. You're great.
You're awesome.
Your old hat.
Your history. So, here's what you need to do.
Head on over to www.podcastawards.com.
Nominate The Hysteria Continues for Best Movie and TV Podcast.
And nominate Scream Queens for Best GLBT.
And you can decide which of us to nominate for the coveted People's Choice Award.
You have until October the 15th to get your ballots in.
But remember, for nominations, you're only allowed one ballot.
Sneak in a second one, and they're both disqualified.
So don't do that.
No, not cool.
Totally not cool.
But vote now at www.podcastawards.com.
And nominate The Hysteria Continues for Best Movie and TV.
And Scream Queens for Best GLBT.
And for the People's Choice Award,
be sure to nominate The
Scream
Hysteria
Queens.
Continues.
Really, Justin? Is that how it's going to be?
You bet it is.
Oh, it's on.
And now, let's make podcasting history. Well, there you go. I do apologise for Argento's interruption there. For such a small cat, he does some very...
It's kind of fitting for what we're going to be speaking about soon. So,
well, exactly. Yes. It's his commentary on what we've got coming up. And but just the Podcast Awards, if you do get a chance, please head over there and vote, as we say, because it'd be great to help get the podcast out to a larger audience. So...
yes, I nominated Bill O'Reilly tomorrow, his podcast.
Sorry?
I nominated Bill O'Reilly's podcast.
Did you?
Who's Bill
or whoever that guy is from one of the Fox News channels.
Oh, right.
the anti-gay guy or whatever.
Oh, right. Well, thank you.
Did you vote him for Best BLT?
Yeah. Bacon, lettuce, tomato.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like I say the Listeria Continues.
Isn't that's a mouthwash, is it not?
No,
isn't it Listerine Continues?
Listeria is I think Listeria is isn't that a disease?
I don't know what that is.
Which is probably quite fitting. But so anyway, hopefully that's the last of the cat droppings. But what we'll do now, go on to our top three, I think. And this time we're going to be talking about...
Oh, an elephant's just come in and done a poo on my floor. Can we take a break for a second?
Eric.
Play the trailer again.
Only joking. Continue.
Okay. Well, we'll get to something probably quite apt in a minute, won't we? But top three best giallo death scenes, and obviously the slasher movie got more and more creative after Friday the 13th, looking at more and more creative ways to kill teenagers off. But of course, it wasn't they weren't the originators of the creative death. If any film probably was, it probably was a giallo, because as we're going to talk about, they had some very wacky and very effective death scenes. So, who wants to go first? How about you, Eric? What's your number three?
Okay, my number three comes from The Boogeyman and the French Murders, or actually should be The Bogeyman and the French Murders, aka the French Sex Murders. The one I was initially thinking of was the very, very opening shot, which is a low angle shot of the Eiffel Tower, and you see this silhouette, I suppose you would call it, falling towards the camera, replicating somebody being pushed off the top of the Eiffel Tower. And it's so shoddy that I can only assume it was probably an artistic device rather than intended to be a proper special effect. But the one effect in the film that is quite well done is something that is very similar to what happens to David Warner in The Omen. We have a guy being chased by the police. He's on a motorbike. He turns a corner and fails to spot that there is a delivery van with its sort of ramp, I suppose, open. He goes neck first into it, actually, which decapitates him, takes his head completely off, which I thought was... So that's two great murder... Well, one shoddy murder, one quite interesting murder for the price of one in Bogeyman and the French Murders.
Mm. And that's got Rosabella Neri in it as well, isn't it?
Oh, does it?
I think so. Yeah, she's the chanteuse in the nightclub. And they're quite similar, aren't they? Sort of, films like Sleazewise. Although there isn't. I don't think there's any gusset typing in that one.
although there is a. The reason it's called The Bogeyman and the French Murders is because the lead detective sort of resembles Humphrey Bogart. But I haven't watched the film in a while, but that has no relevance to the plot, does it? The fact that he looks like Humphrey Bogart.
It's just
it just looks like
strange.
Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah, it's very, very odd. But yeah, a fun movie. So, well, thank you for that, Erik.
So Fatal Frames should be called Susie Sue and the Fatal Frames because Stefania Stay, etc., etc.
He can't even finish it. He's laughing.
Yeah, because he knows he's not speaking the truth. So, anyway, enough of Erik. Joseph, what was your number 3?
Well, my number 3 is the opening scene from Mario Bava's A Bay of Blood from, was it 1972, I believe it is? I can't remember the year.
71, I think?
The 71, that's it. But I like the idea of, you see this woman in a wheelchair, and then somebody with the requisite black gloves. Now, a lot of people think this might not be a gialli. It's more of a body count precursor, but I'm including it because it's Italian, and the guy's wearing black gloves. So anyway, he puts a noose around her neck, knocks her out of the wheelchair, and he hangs her. But I like the idea that it pans up to show you who the killer is, and then he ends up getting killed off by an unseen person. So, I mean, Bay of Blood is a lot like that through the whole movie. Like, one person turns out to be a killer only to be bumped off by someone else who's kind of mysterious for a while, and it kind of follows that pattern until the end. But I found that opening scene with the woman in the wheelchair, the elderly woman getting bumped off, I found that really surprising.
No, it's a great film, and also it's just kind of it's kind of like a little bit of a black comedy, isn't it?
Yeah,
that whole thing.
It's got some very macabre humor.
Yeah, but considering it's almost like it's a bit was not really the right thing to say, but it's kind of the scream of its day, but it's kind of deconstructing the giallo, isn't it, in a lot of ways, which is obviously the type of film that Mario Bava arguably helped create in the first place, with the Girl Who Knew Too Much. But yeah, no, that's a good choice. Thank you, Joseph. Anything to say on that, Erik?
No, but I do think Bay of Blood is filled with very interesting murder sequences.
I mean, yeah, there's so many to pick from. I mean,
I like the is it a sickle somebody gets through their face, much like the guy in the wheelchair in Friday the 13th Part 2.
It's like a sling blade almost.
Yeah.
Some folks call it a Kaiser blade. Something like that.
But no, yeah, I do agree. That's a great opening sequence for Bay of Blood, yeah.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you, Joseph. My number 3 is Paolo Cavera's The Black Belly of the Tarantula, which was also from 1971. And again, with the giallo, it was kind of a lot of the kind of almost, when you actually take them in isolation, they sound very, very daft, a lot dafter than most slasher movie motives and the killings. And in The Black Belly of the Tarantula, a killer, again, it's similar to Slaughter Hotel. It kind of revolves around a health and beauty centre which is populated by beautiful women, and somebody is killing them off one by one. But the thing that makes it slightly unique is what he or she does is basically stabs them in the back of the neck with tarantula. Wasp. It's a poison taken from wasp, which makes them sort of basically go into immobilizes them, but they're fully conscious, but they can't move. and it's what a wasp does to a tarantula and then lays their eggs in the still living tarantula, and tarantula is essentially eaten alive. But what the killer does is gives this to his or her victims, and so they can't move, but they're aware when they're killed. And there's a great scene with Barbara Boucher. No, is it Barbara Boucher? It was Barbara Boucher, but she gets killed. But the one I'm thinking of is who was the other one? Barbara Bach, who was a Bond girl and also went on to be in the kind of little scene / movie The Unseen. She gets killed, but the killer does that, and there's a great scene. Very iconic, with the killer standing above her with the blade flashing, and she's lying naked in front of him or her, and then he stabs her to death. But yes, that's my number 3. So, any thoughts on that one?
I haven't watched Black Belly of the Tarantula for a while, so
it's not one of my favourite films, but it's got some good stuff. It's got a great revelation, which I won't say the killer's revelation, and it's quite amusing. And I like Giancarlo Gianni as Inspector Tellini in it. He's a really good actor. He was in lots of non-genre Italian films, and he's probably a better actor than a lot of the actors and actresses they used to get in the giallo. So that kind of really helps lift it up as well. But yes, that's my number 3. And talking of cats using toilets, I think you might know what's coming next. Okay, Erik, what's your number 2?
Okay, my number 2 comes from the granddaddy of all Jolly. It is from Deep Red, and it's one of, I suppose, a number of scenes in films that really, really makes me wince. It's where I can't remember the character's name or the actor's name, which is, brilliant research. Thank you very much. It's where the guy has his teeth bashed off the edge of a mantelpiece. Now, that doesn't actually kill him, but it makes me want to faint, to be honest. And his sort of final moments are, we see the knife, and the camera follows the knife sort of as if the camera and the knife are sort of connected in some way, and he is stabbed through the neck. I just think it starts off really brutal and ends up quite kind of artistic, the whole murder scene. So yeah, it's from Deep Red.
I mean, Argento's arguably the maestro of the giallo death scene, isn't he?
He is. But all his death scenes, of course, well, I suppose all the giallo death scenes have that really, really fake-looking blood, which, as Tom Savini says about the blood in Dawn of the Dead, it looks like melted crayons. But,
yes, it does.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? I wonder why they did that. Yeah. No, it's the great death scene, and Deep Red.
But it's the bashing of the teeth that really, really gets me in that scene.
Well, it's a bit like the that scene in Last House on the Left, isn't it? With the chisel, the dream sequence, and chisel on the teeth. And I remember when I was at college, we did an all-night horror film festival, and that was the one scene that got people screaming. It's just the idea of a chisel to the teeth, and it's horrific, but it's not as horrific as having your head chopped off or something like that. But it's more, I don't know if it's more.
It's more identifiable, I suppose. You can really relate to it because we've all sort of, I don't know, we haven't all bashed our mouths off mantelpieces, but you understand the pain that sort of some kind of dental,
What you mean if you kind of caught your teeth on something hard?
Exactly. Yeah.
I saw that coming. I knew that was coming. Get that coming?
Yes, we did. Yes.
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah. I think it deserves a.
It wasn't that hard.
Well done, Nathan.
Well, it seems a little bit rickety, Doctor.
Is it? Yes, but of course it's fairly easy to get it up. It's getting it to stay up. That's what counts.
Oh, of course. Right. Okay.
Love him.
Thank you, Erik. How about you, Joseph? What's your number 2? Actually, sorry, I do apologise.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Erik. Sorry, Joseph, what's your number 2?
Yes, you cannot forget the kitten, or the cat. My number 2 is from an Argento film, Opera. It's basically the knife through the lower jaw of William McNamara's character. Now, what's funny about this film is that William McNamara, he was the murderer in Copycat, and he was in one of my picks from a couple of weeks ago where we picked non-horror films. But anyway, I picked this scene because it's really graphic. You know, like you said, Argento is kind of this composer when it comes to graphic murders, and basically the killer stabs him through the lower jaw, and you see the blade. I guess it's like a pitching trowel or whatever he uses to stab him. It goes through his lower jaw, and you see it come up from like the bottom of his mouth, and it's like wiggling around inside of his mouth, and they show like a close up of it, and you know, it's like the teeth on the mantle scene, like Erik was talking about from Deep Red. It's very uncomfortable, you know, showing that kind of close up of the, you know, of the mouth and the pain inflicted upon it. So that's it's really artistic the way they've done it, but at the same time, it's very wince inducing. So that's why I picked that.
Excellent. Okay. Well, no, I think it's arguably his last, you know, good film, isn't it?
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, no,
I think it's quite kind of ironic that my number 2 was an Argento film, and Joseph's number 2 was an Argento film, and your cat Argento just did a number 2.
That is weird, isn't it?
It is weird.
I guess you should go play the lottery today.
I think we should, all of us. Yeah.
Wow.
By the way, I saw, since we last spoke 3 weeks ago now, I saw Copycat. It was on the television. I did enjoy it, I have to say. I remember you recommended it.
I really liked the film a lot.
Okay. No, I have to watch it. I still haven't seen it, but I shall add that to my ever-growing list. So, well, thank you, Joseph. And let's see what my number 2 is. Right. Well, suitably, it's not an Argento film, my number 2, but my number 2 is The Crimes of the Black Cat, from 1972, directed by Sergio Pastor. And it's a film starring Anthony Stefan and Sylvia Koskanana. Koskanana is probably, you probably don't say a name like that. Koskina. But yeah, Crimes of the Black Cat. It's kind of an atypical giallo because it's a bit like The Iguana with a Tongue of Fire and those kind of films where that was set in Dublin. This is set, I think it's in Copenhagen or somewhere, Ostend or somewhere cold, unlike the kind of hot Latin locations of many giallo. But it's not so much the one murder here, although there is a very effective sort of scene lifted from Psycho with a woman who's killed in a shower, basically a recreation of the famous scene in Psycho. But it's one of my favourite nutty kind of murder methods, and the way that people are killed in this is by somebody taking. Basically, it turns out that they've been taking around a cat inside basically a box covered in a yellow shawl, and they've dipped the cat's claws in poison. So when people open up the box, the cat jumps out like a sort of, you know, which you don't actually see, but it jumps out and scratches the person, and then they die, which I thought was probably one of the most impractical murder methods that you could possibly ever have, because trying to use a cat as an assassin, I think, would always be difficult. And having taken a cat to the vets in the last week, I know the last thing I want to be is in any kind of carrier, especially if all they have to do is get out by jumping through a yellow shawl. So that's my big number 2. But that's quite a fun film and very daft. Have you both seen that?
Yeah, again, a long time ago, so I can't really recall. I do recall the sort of murder method of using the cat with the poison claws, but apart from that, I don't remember much.
No.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I have seen it.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, good stuff. And I guess we're on to our top giallo murder scenes, aren't we? What would yours be, Erik?
My number 1 comes from My Dear Killer, which is a 1972 film by Tonino Valeri. And it's actually at the very, very start of the film. There is a guy looking around this lake in a quarry. He's investigating a murder that's taken place there. And I don't even know if he has any lines in the film, but he is soon decapitated by an excavator or a digger or a dredger, whatever you want to call that device. It's kind of a JCB type device. It basically locks onto his head, lifts him up, and you can see him struggling and his legs flapping, and then his body falls to the ground, you know, soon after, followed by his head. I just thought it was so over the top and very much like a 1980s American slasher movie death. So that's number 1. It's My Dear Killer.
And of course, that also has Marissa Mel, doesn't it, playing a dual role in that? And she, there's a scene where she gets killed with a circular saw, isn't there?
Yes.
The characters
I'm not sure about the actress's name, but I know that somebody does get killed with a big circular saw, and it is really gory.
Yeah.
Because giallos around this time weren't particularly graphic.
No.
But that particular scene was. And it was straight out of, I don't know, Pieces or something.
Yeah. So, excellent. Okay. Have you seen that, Joseph?
Yes, I have. I really like My Dear Killer a lot.
I was very proud. I got quoted on the cover, on the DVD cover on that one. So
that's right, you did, didn't you?
Yeah. So I was very, very proud of that.
Which release? The British one or the?
It's the American one, I think.
All right.
Yes, I'll grab it in a minute. But anyway, so yeah, well, that's good. Thank you, Erik. How about you, Joseph? What's your number one?
Well, I'm repeating myself here doubly because my number one is another Argento pick, and I've actually picked it before, but it's just such a great scene, I had to pick it again. I don't remember what I picked it for in the past, but I did pick it. But it's the arterial arm chopping from Tenebrae from 1982. Yeah. I just think it's a very artistic scene. I mean, this woman, is sitting by the window with a gun because I guess she suspects someone's coming after her, and then the axe kind of busts through the window and chops her arm off, and then, the stump is spraying this like ghostly white wall with like crimson, and I just think it's a very, very neat scene. And like I said, Argento is kind of the master at framing these artistic murders, and he makes them look like high art. So yeah, that's why I picked that. I mean, I'm repeating myself again, but what can I do? It's such a great scene in a really great film, I think.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, that's a really good pick.
That's Silvio Berlusconi's wife, isn't it? That actress. The actress who gets her hand chopped off and...
Really?
Yeah.
What is she? It's Veronica Lario?
Yes, Veronica Lario. Yeah.
And she's... Oh, is she? Okay.
Yeah. Right. I'm not sure if they're still together, but they were married.
I can't imagine. Doesn't he keep having bunga parties with underage exotic dancers? Isn't that what...
No, that's Jimmy Savile you're thinking of.
Oh, yes. Yes, Jimmy Savile. We were doing. We did some very. That face juggler that we can put stuff up on.
that app
on
for the
Facebook.
iPhone. Yeah.
Yeah, but we found out because after drinking cocktails last night, we found out that if you happen to have a photo of somebody or a picture behind you when you do that, it will sometimes swap the face with the person.
Oh, brilliant!
And so yeah, we had a few drinks, and then someone got up a picture of Jimmy Savile on the laptop. And yes, and then it turned into Myra Hindley, Rose West, Margaret Thatcher, and it just went on down and down. Yes. So anyway, not proud of that.
They should swap faces with Toya and Susie and see what happens.
Well, exactly.
I think the world might end.
Erik, you should try that. You should.
I think I might.
Yeah, but obviously the photos from last night will not be going on Facebook. So, I might send you one privately, but
okay.
I can't. Yes, they were very disturbing. Actually, very, very disturbing. You should try it. But so anyway, on that bombshell, leading into my number one, funnily enough, is another Argento movie. Actually, it's the same Argento movie. It's Tenebrae, and but I did choose a different death scene. Well, there were two. I was torn between the death scene, the famous scene of the camera panning over the house where the killer kills the two women in the house, which I think is probably still ranks amongst Argento's best ever scene. I mean, it's just an incredible scene with this kind of crane that kind of stalks. It's kind of like the point of view shot of the killer, but if the killer could levitate and then goes right up over the house and back in through a window, it's with the amazing score pumping away. But the scene that I thought, the one that really struck me, and it was kind of, Tenebrae was kind of, I don't think Argento's ever really said as much, but Tenebrae essentially was his kind of slasher movie, wasn't it? Because it was released in 1982 at the tail end of the slasher movie boom, and I think he probably decided to make another giallo with slasher elements because he probably was able to get the money to do so. And it's a scene where Lara Wendell, who's in lots of those kind of Ghost House, isn't she, in that, and all those kind of films, but is when she goes to the killer's house and she goes in, and then the killer hisses something at her, and it's just that the camera follows her, and she runs through basically the camera pans after her, and she slams the side doors and then runs through the grass, and the killer's just chasing her, and then she gets attacked by a dog, and then the killer catches up with her and kills her. And I just thought that was kind of had all the best elements of a slasher movie chase scene and death scene, but done under the eye of someone as meticulous and talented as Dario Argento as he was then. So that was my number one.
It's a shame what happened to him, though.
Yeah, it is a shame.
As far as his talent goes, I mean, it kind of really got flushed down the toilet after Opera, in my opinion. I mean, he's had a couple of Trauma I thought was okay, but for the most part, his movies have been kind of really miss.
I don't really understand. I mean, there is a lot to be said for not having as much money to do stuff, but you could still do smaller scale movies, couldn't you, and still make good movies. Because his movies didn't suffer with the kind of bad acting and dubbing. So it makes you wonder why they have to, have all the really bad dubbing and the Eurotrash style dubbing on some of them and things like that. That's not something that's down to not having enough money. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. But yes. But we'll see. Well, Dracula 3D apparently has been picked up for American distribution, but in what guise, I don't know. Whether or not I can't imagine it might get limited theatrical release, perhaps. But beyond that, I don't know. But those are our top 3 giallo death scenes, and we'd love to know what yours are. So if you'd like to write in and tell us, then please do. We'll come up with the details of how to contact the show a little bit later. But I think it's probably time now, if you agree, to get on to the first of our feature presentations. What do we reckon?
Oh, yeah.
Let's do it.
Right, well, we're going to go for Slaughter Hotel first. Now, there is a trailer for Slaughter Hotel, but there's no dialogue in it. So I thought I'll play a little bit of dialogue from the film to lead us in.
Anne, don't you want to get well?
I'm not sick, Doctor. There's nothing wrong with me. I don't know why I'm here. I didn't want to kill myself or anyone else. I'm not one of those mad people who need you. I just want to make love. Make love, that's all.
There's no question of your being insane, Anne. You're a perfectly healthy woman. It's just that your desire to make love is excessive, compulsive. Go and take a shower.
An isolated sanatorium, which is only seemingly populated by the beautiful Eurobabes, tries unusual therapy for its charges, which includes rigorous croquet therapy and enthusiastic buttock massaging. The mental health facility also helpfully has a medieval armoury, which comes in handy when a psychotic killer in a long black cloak starts hacking up the patients with an axe, scythe and mace in his notorious grindhouse giallo. Slaughter Hotel, also known as what have we got here? Also known as The Beast Kills in Cold Blood, also Asylum Erotica, and also a name which the Belgian title apparently, and this is quite fitting considering what Argento did earlier. It's Les Insatiables Poopies Erotics. So.
The insatiable erotic poopies.
Yes.
That's what we're getting at right there.
Yes. So I know what poopies is in French. Obviously, I know what insatiables and les. Well,
how do you spell poopies?
It's a P-O-U-P-E hyphen above the E-E-S. So it's poopies or poupées, erotics. But thankfully, there's no erotic poopies in this film. But there is an awful lot. But you can actually the title Erotics Asylum or Asylum Erotica is probably a little bit more apt. I can't remember who said on the Facebook page. Somebody, one of our listeners said, I just watched Asylum Erotica. Oh my! If you're not initiated into this film, then it could come as a shock if you sit down with your boyfriend or girlfriend to sit this film, to watch this film, and then you suddenly see a close up of a lady, well, how can I, put it politely, flicking the bean.
Flicking the bean?
Yes, not once, not twice, but at least 3 times there are close up vaginal massaging going on in this film, which were inserts. I don't think they weren't actually filmed by the director, but it was common practice to release giallo with hardcore inserts, especially in the States, and then sort of sell them as sex films. So, but having said that, even without that, pretty much every actress gets her boobs out, and and not a word of a lie, but I had the Shriek Show DVD, and I was watching it this morning, and there's a scene where the killer attacks a woman who's this fantastic, I can't remember her name, she's a blonde-haired actress who's got these most amazing eyelashes like tarantulas, and she's lying in bed, and there's a great scene when it starts the film, which just started at the beginning of the podcast, where her husband's driving her to this kind of sanatorium, and she goes, "You're sending me to the loony bin," and he says, "They don't call it loony bins anymore, dear," and she sort of grabs the wheel, and they almost crash, and he sort of says, "Oh, it's all very well trying to kill me, but why commit suicide?" And then she gets to the asylum, and then she kind of attacks a doctor with a log who tells her to have a nice lie down. But anyway, her therapy extends to her being attacked by the killer, who cuts off her panties with a kind of medieval sword or kind of dagger. And the DVD froze at the moment that the dagger tip is poised right over her minge, basically, and it stuck there just as someone walked in. There it was, and I didn't pause it on purpose, but
it's not what it looks like.
It's not what it looks like, exactly.
Is my face red?
Absolutely. So, I talk a little bit more about it, but what were your thoughts, guys? What about you, Joseph?
Actually, you know what? I kind of liked Slaughterhouse Hotel. I thought it was a lot of fun. I mean, it's really silly. I mean, why does this hospital have all these medieval weapons? I mean, it's like the Spanish Inquisition almost. If that was like tough love for heretics, this is like tough love for nymphomaniacs. And I love the scene where I don't remember who it was, but one of the nymphomaniacs is kind of roaming around, and she happens upon the gardener in the greenhouse, and so she's trying to seduce him, and he just says, "Please, I'm just a gardener." Like that's going to stop them from having sex. But basically, they do have sex, and they have this sex music that loops instead of kind of fading out naturally. It stops, and it's like automatically rewound, and it plays from the beginning again, and it just keeps looping over and over like that. And finally, after they get done having sex, he's like, "You have to get back to your room. If they catch you with me, I will be fired." And she just won't go. She just wants to jump his bones again. So he does this hilarious triple slap. He's like, smack, smack, smack. He's like, "Leave me alone." And I got a good kick out of that. And like you said, there is consistent like almost scary amounts of female nudity, and then some of the semi-X-rated close-ups of their vaginal area I thought was kind of weird. And but another scene I really liked was the cha-cha dancing foreplay scene between the lesbian couple near the end, where the woman's in the bath and she's getting the sponge bath, and she's like, "Go have a lie down, I'll be in there in a minute." And then she goes in there, and instead of going at it, the darker girl just starts cha-cha dancing, and it goes on and on and on.
Is that when she said, because she says, "Oh, this music's from your country, isn't it?" or something like that. So
I know. I mean,
it's kind of
borderline racist, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I got a lot of enjoyment out of the film, out of the silly stuff like that, and I kind of liked the actual finale where they reveal the killer. Now, I guess getting into a little bit of spoiler territory, the killer turns out to be one of the orderlies. I can't remember his name, but he has the exact same haircut as Klaus Kinski's character, so they kind of try to trick you into thinking it's Klaus Kinski a lot, because you can see his hair in the shadows. So you're like, "Oh, it's Klaus Kinski," but no, it's the other guy.
I don't think it's an order. Was it? I thought it was Margaret Lee's husband.
I thought it was Margaret Lee's husband as well.
Because you only see him right at the beginning.
Was he husband? I thought he was an orderly or something.
No, it's her husband.
Because you see, there's a scene right at the beginning where they're going to let her go, and she's having an affair, or kind of start an affair with Klaus Kinski, and he doesn't want her to go, and then the husband's in the room going, "Oh, it's great, you're going to be coming home. She needs to come home because she runs the company." And I thought
that guy was an orderly. Okay, I got a little confused, but you know who I'm talking about anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he's only in the movie for like one scene before he's revealed to be the murderer.
He's an utter dreamboat.
Is he?
You're lying.
No, I lie.
But I like the finale. It's kind of hyper violent. I mean, it kind of, most of the murder scenes are kind of done in shadow or implied, but at the end, you have this guy. He's basically running away from the cops, and they corner him, and he goes into this room with like 5 or 6 women, and he basically bludgeons them all, and the film kind of ends like that. It's kind of, I don't know, it kind of goes against the whole semi-silly erotic nature of the film. I don't know, but it kind of works in that way where it's kind of like the antithesis of that. But yeah, I like the Slaughter Hotel. It's really stupid, but it's a lot of fun. I had fun with it.
What about you, Erik?
Well, I thought it reminded me very much of Fellini's 8.5.
Did you?
No. If art house cinema has a polar opposite, then this is it. I mean, the film is just bonkers. I mean, from the outset, you have like when the film started, I was like, oh, it's this mental institution, and they're allowed to walk around with croquet mallets all the time. How weird. But then you see all these medieval implements for torture, and you're like, okay, croquet mallets are the least of their worries. They've got these maces and axes. They even have Iron Maiden in this mental institution.
Yeah, they have an Iron Maiden. I mean, why? Why would you have an Iron Maiden in a hospital?
Especially when, like, early on, a woman tries to attack.
Like a virgin therapy for, I don't know what that is.
Yeah. I think it's just the environs that its place is set in. I don't think it serves any purpose to the therapy. I mean, you'd want to be careful around there, especially when like that woman at the start attacks the doctor with the log. I mean, what's she going to do when she sees all the variety of implements that are going to be at her disposal when she gets inside?
It gives the killer convenient access to a lot of different weapons. I even saw Mace at one point. He has the spiked ball on a stick.
Well, I like the scene
that,
when.
Sorry.
So as to say, I like the scene where he there's various scenes where he goes up to where all the weaponry is on the wall, and it's kind of like it's like a box of chocolates, isn't he? He's going, you see this black gloved hand going to, he goes, I'll take the axe this time.
Yeah.
So he's kind of thinking, shall I have, will I have the hard centre or soft centre? So it was literally like a maniac in a sweet shop, wasn't it?
Oh, totally, yeah.
Yeah.
I did enjoy the film. I thought it could be a bit shorter because I wasn't that enthused about all the scenes where women are writhing around on the bed having a little tiptoe through the tulips. They went on.
I love your metaphors for masturbation. It's so funny.
But I mean, they did go on incredibly long. Well, it seemed like ages to me. I mean, that one with Anne, maybe 2/3 of the way through the film, seemed to go on for about at least 5 minutes, which is a lot of screen time, to be honest. And then there's the dance scene as well, which I didn't mind because I thought that was quite funny. And that went on for about 5 minutes. So the film does have its slow portions, but I thought it was so deliriously trashy and silly. Apart from that very end mass murder scene with the mace, I thought that was incredibly brutal and really, really...
Graphic.
Yeah, and I mean, Justin, you were talking about long ago on the podcast about endings that are sort of out of kilter with the rest of the film. I thought that was because it was incredibly, it was like something from a Tarantino movie or something really disturbing for a film that for the rest of its running time is so trashy.
Yeah, it's kind of like Girls' Night Out or Sleepaway Camp. They have these kind of stark endings that go against their silly kind of preamble, and then it just kind of takes you out, but at the same time it kind of works.
Did you notice though when he comes into the room and all the nurses are there, and they all of them kind of cower away and run away from him, apart from one in a bed just by the door who just lies there and does nothing, and then he whacks her over the head, and it does a close up and shows her kind of bleeding. But it was kind of like it was just, I don't know, it was just obviously bad editing. But he kind of bursts in, all the nurses scream, and one's just lying there like la 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 la.
Maybe she'd had a few James Bonds.
She might have done, indeed. Yes, but I don't know if you know, but the film talk a little bit more about background that sort of dug up on the film, but that was kind of arguably inspired by the Richard Speck murders in 1966, which is where he kind of broke into a house and killed nurses. Which a similar scene was done in 10 to Midnight, the Charles Bronson sort of nude killer movie with John Travolta's wife is in that. But yes, so that was arguably because the film, when it was released in America in '73, was something with a tagline something like "See the brutal murders of 8 beautiful nurses" or something. So it was kind of either inspired by the Richard Speck murders, or it certainly sold to an American audience as being inspired by it. But yeah, and it was bizarre, that end with that killer, wasn't it? Because he looks like you say, he's not exactly a dreamboat. He kind of looks like the Simpsons, Mr. Burns in the Beatles wig, I thought.
He does, doesn't he? Yeah.
Which is kind of bizarre, but not as horrific as Margaret Lee's velvet jumpsuit, which she kind of wore throughout. Which would have been.
I think Slaughter Hotel can be best summed up when Klaus Kinski's like the least weird element in your film, then you know you've got problems.
Exactly. He's funny, isn't it? But he was kind of like, he's, in a lot of films, Klaus Kinski is just kind of off the wall completely, but he's
very subdued in this film.
He's very subdued. I mean, he doesn't really have any use, does he?
No, he hasn't got a lot of screen time. To be honest,
they just want you to think he's the murderer since he's the star, and he's kind of a famous name, and then he has the same shaggy hair. But other than that, he's kind of useless.
Yeah. But it failed. If you go into it to watch it, hoping it's going to be a giallo, then it's more. I think I've seen reviews online that said it's kind of more of a sex film with giallo elements thrown in, horror elements thrown in, which I think is probably true. But it's also so deliciously daft and stupid and trashy that you can't. I find it very entertaining. It's just I love the fact you got Monica Strebel, who's the red-haired nurse, who is this predatory lesbian nurse. There was. The giallo is of its time, and obviously it's they're kind of the sexual politics are obviously all over the place, and whenever you have lesbians in giallo, like Case of the Bloody Iris, they're always predatory lesbians, but that's the 70s for you, I kind of guess. But in this, it's kind of like this kind of this vulnerable woman that she was kind of like I wonder if she was ever going to get struck off. From being,
that's highly unprofessional.
Soaping her. Yeah. Basically, she's got this woman in the bath, and she takes off her clothes and strips down to her panties, and then sort of basically gets a loofah, and we don't see it, but it looks like she sticks a loofah up her Lulu, and this woman goes, "How marvellous!" And it's kind of, and then she goes. Then this nurse goes and sits at the chair while this woman's drying herself off. Takes off her panties and then has a little bit of a gusset type. It's not we're not talking about best practice really there, are we?
No.
So, but she doesn't get killed, does she? But her lesbian lover does get an arrow through the neck. But yes. So, anything else you want to say about Slaughter Hotel? I've got a little bit of background.
Well, I think if you want to compare it to another giallo, it's the nearest sibling. I think would probably Strip Nude for Your Killer in terms of silliness and Kit Kat shuffling and all that.
Well, it's
Erik, you do a lot of chunky Kit Kat shuffling, don't you?
I'm doing it right now.
Oh dear. But no, I agree. There was what I think for this film was kind of atypical in so much that it was so explicit for the time, because later on the giallo, got some very notorious films like Giallo Venezia and also Play Motel, films where they kind of interspersed kind of pornography, hardcore porn into the films with very, very explicit violence.
Yeah, now that you mention it, it kind of reminds me of the slashers, The Sex Maniac with Farley Granger. Yeah, it had a lot of the X-rated inserts.
Because that was released in the States as Penetration, wasn't it?
Penetration, yeah.
Which, again, like you say, it's got all these kind of inserts. And I think the most explicit inserts in this weren't filmed by, who was the director? It was, what was his name?
Fernando De Leo.
De Leo, that's right, yes. But even so, there was still quite a lot of nudity, wasn't it? All of the main characters get nude at least once. And writhe around on the beds for ages and ages.
Except we should tell people, don't worry, Klaus Kinski doesn't get naked.
No, that's probably for the best, isn't it? Yeah. So, have you got any background or anything you want to say about the film, or?
Not in this one.
No,
I'm afraid,
not on Slaughter Hotel, but I do a little bit for the next film.
Okay.
So do I.
Well, I've just got a few bits to just say. The Fernando de Leo, the director, this is his only foray into the giallo. He was kind of probably better known for his westerns and crime films. And the Shriek Show disc that came out about 6, 7, 8 years ago, maybe. There's an interview with it, and he's passed away sadly since then. But he said he wasn't particularly proud of this film, but he was proud the fact that it had a cult following, and essentially it was knocked together very, very quickly to try and steal the thunder. Well, to basically soak up some of the financial success of the Argento films from the early 70s, and it was filmed in just 12 days. So it was a very quick turnaround, but I did think it looks really good, doesn't it? It kind of the cinematography is excellent, and the soundtrack by who was the soundtrack? It was by somebody. I can't. Silvano Spadacino. Apparently, it was scored in an evening by him, and I think the music actually was pretty nice. So I'm surprised that was, unless some of it was taken from other places. What else is there? The location of it was the same sort of house, kind of like it's a mansion, isolated mansion that was used in Burial Ground, and also Patrick Lives Again.
Oh, two great movies. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. But whether or not it's true or not, but I did find it said apparently the house was once owned by a rich Vatican priest. And when he died, his relatives inherited it and rented it out to film productions, and sort of saying
for the most un-Catholic type films they could possibly.
Exactly. Well, especially Patrick Lives Again, because that gets, I can't remember her name now. The woman who gets her boobies chewed off in Burial Ground gets a poker straight up her Lulu. In Patrick Lives Again. So you can imagine this Catholic priest kind of like anyway. That's the Catholic Church for you, I guess, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So
there's some kind of sexual guilt with these Italian directors, always mutilating very naughty body parts.
What, like Lulu's?
Yeah, like Lulu's. Yeah.
Well, no, it's funny, isn't it? But they kind of a lot of giallos have the killer turn out to be a priest, don't they? And that is again, that's all. It was a kind of there's quite a lot of stuff about politics and the politics of the church and everything around in the 70s in Italy, and so that's there's time for another time. But it was kind of interesting. And lastly, apparently it is now a historic inn, so you can actually go and stay there. But whether or not you can still get buttock massages, I don't know. But one of us will have to go to Italy and find out, won't we? But yes, well, there you go. Well, that is Slaughter Hotel. So. But that
AKA
was just,
Cold-Blooded Killer.
Exactly, yeah, Cold-Blooded Killer, and the Cold-Blooded
Asylum Erotica.
Asylum Erotica. Just lastly, actually, one last thing was the Shriek Show disc. It's very good, but it gets. I don't know if it's the version you saw, but when there's one scene where they play the wrong audio.
Yes,
it's at the end because the Shriek Show version is the one they title Cold-Blooded Beast, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
That's the one
It's where the arrow comes through the neck, is it?
That's right. And so it's got the wrong they play the dialogue scene from
twice.
The next scene, to play it twice, which is a really bad fuck up. It's not the kind of thing that you would think they would have.
I also acquired a version. The Baby Jesus delivered a version to me, and that scene is intact. The audio is intact, but it is in Italian. So maybe there was never any English,
or it got lost or something.
Possibly, because there's an Italian disc out, which apparently is in dual. It's got English and Italian. That's what I thought, anyway. But
and you can get it actually on Region 2 DVD, which is our neck of the woods, just as Asylum Erotica uncut, apparently. So I don't know if that means that scene is in there, but.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a heavily expository scene. I don't think you really miss a whole lot of information because it just basically focuses on the women kind of scared after the arrow through the throat or whatever, and then it just those guys, the orderlies come in, and then it just kind of goes into the whole the finale.
Be interesting if there was some dialogue playing over the woman gusset typing.
Yeah,
that would have been interesting.
I wonder what it would be.
Yeah.
I'll just play just before to finish because I did have another sound clip that made me chuckle a little bit, and this is towards the end. It doesn't really give anything away, but this is where they call in the police, and it's here we go.
You acted like a fool. Explain, or can't you? You moved the bodies, extracted the weapons, and took them away. Wasted your time. Then finally called the police and asked us to come as quickly as possible and with the utmost discretion. You must think this is sort of a sideshow, and not the handiwork of a brutal killer, of a sex maniac. You must be crazy. Up to now, you've been acting like an accomplice.
I refuse to stand here and let you be so insulting.
Relax, Professor. Why should you feel the commissioner is insulting you? Up to now, everything you've done has helped the killer.
That's enough.
Not by half, it isn't. You've interfered disastrously with the police. Neither my colleague nor I can do anything whatever to prevent other killings from taking place in this clinic. Telephone headquarters.
Yes, well, that told him, didn't it?
Mm,
But,
yeah.
Well, that was Slaughter Hotel.
Send him to his room.
Exactly. And that was the entree, not the entree, but that was the starter. And unfortunately, this is the main cheese course coming up. And we will play, well, hold on, let's play the trailer for Fatal Frames.
Stefania Stella, Rick Gianasi, Ugo Pagliai, David Warbeck, Alida Valli, Giorgio Albertazzi, Ciccio Ingrassia, Linnea Quigley, Rossano Brazzi, Donald Pleasance, effetti speciali del premio Oscar Steve Johnson in un thriller senza fine. Stefania Di Giandomenico presenta Fatal Frames, fotogrammi mortali, regia e musiche di Al Festa, l'estremo limite del brivido.
A music video director comes to Italy to direct a video for pop sensation, with inverted commas, Stefania Stella. He soon encounters a mysterious killer who videotapes his victims for the police. As the horrible murders continue, Rit is unknowingly pushed into the killer's games, and he soon becomes a target of the police. The video killer is on the loose, and Rit must find out the truth before it's too late. Fatal Frames. Yes. What can be said about Fatal Frames? Well, as they say, what is seen can never be unseen, I think is probably an apt way of putting it. This film is essentially a love letter to the Giallo, the 70s Giallo. It was made in 1996, coincidentally the same year that Scream came out. So it was looking back, but it doesn't deconstruct the Giallo in the same the Scream deconstructs the slasher movie at all. But it feels it's made by Al Festa, who it was a video music director, and produced by Stefania Stella, who was in her own lunchtime a pop sensation, and husband and wife duo who came up with this. And it is I wouldn't say it's laugh a minute, but it is quite a jaw-dropping, bizarro. It's difficult to describe this film. It's a 2-hour-long pop video with Stefania Stella baring her teeth and her breasts throughout, with some kind of cod argento kind of they basically, all the budget went on coloured light gels and Stefania Stella's hairspray, I kind of guess. It's a kind of a vanity project for Stefania Stella, and much of the film is taken up with pop videos of her writhing around in places like Trevi Fountain, outside the Colosseum, with lots of muscly men holdering in the air, and it's you have to see it. It's to see it to believe it. It is bizarre film. Stefania Stella has a kind of curious delivery. It's kind of phonetic English. She's got quite a low voice as well. Sometimes you can't really understand what she's saying, but she's basically she's unique. And I'd be interested to hear what Erik and Joseph think of the film. Erik, what are your thoughts on Fatal Frames?
I adore Fatal Frames.
I thought you might.
The first time I saw it was, I think it was last year I saw it, and the reason I'd waited so long was because the 2-hour running time sort of was pushing me away. I thought, even if it is cheesy, 2 hours is just too long, but in this case, it's not. I could have sat through another hour of Fatal Frames, to be quite honest.
Really? Wow.
Sorry?
Really? I was saying it's kind of like you've taken on Nathan's mantle for this.
I feel like
show,
I'm slowly morphing into Nathan. It's like myself and Nathan were in some kind of teleport pod and we've joined or something. It opens with quite a gory decapitation. And then morphs into a cheesy pop video, and that is sort of the perfect opening for me, to be honest. Stefania Stella, as you said, she speaks phonetic English. I was wondering if she even could speak English at all. It felt like she didn't have a word of the language and was just given phonetic direction by Al Festa. But from interviews I've read, I think she does know the language, so it just makes her a crap actress, I'm afraid. She reminds me kind of A Cheeky Girl. And again, sorry, Joseph, for that reference. It probably means nothing to you.
I know who the Cheeky Girl.
Yeah, like her delivery is so stilted. And just any moment she's on the screen, it just makes me laugh. I could watch a Stefania Stella movie for hours on end. She is unique. The other sort of cheesy elements I love about the film are I love the fact that every male character, well, except for Donald Pleasance, has this long Chippendale hair. They all look like they're members of Colour Me Bad. Now that has it does have a plot significance later on, but when you're watching the film, it's like, oh my God, people can diss the 80s all they want, but the 90s were really the decade that taste forgot when you look at this film. Oh my God. And then you have all these wonderful cameos out of nowhere. You've got Linnea Quigley in as a psychic. You've got Angus Scrimm, who is so good in the Phantasm films, and it's possibly even worse than Stefania Stella in this movie in his brief cameo. Of course, David Warbeck is in there, one of his last films. Donald Pleasance, this was his last film, unfortunately. And of course, there is a very famous moment later in the film, I'm sure we'll discuss, involving Donald Pleasance's double in a scene sort of contrived to write him out of the script as he died before photography could be completed.
Shall I play that clip? Do you want me to?
Yes, please, yeah.
When are you leaving?
I'm on my way. I'm calling from the airport, Commissioner. I must be home for Halloween. Looks like an old case has been reopened.
Brilliant. Absolute genius.
Poor Donald Pleasance.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the 90s version of Bloody Moon or something. I just love it. And I know that you guys probably aren't as enthusiastic, and certainly with the running time, you probably have issues, but I don't know. You were mentioned 1996 and Scream and that, and I can tell you without any hint of irony that I would much prefer to watch Fatal Frames again than Scream.
Really? Gosh,
yeah.
That does surprise me.
I mean, I can agree that the Jello element is kind of lacking, but I think it's a wall-to-wall cheese fest that I just get a kick out of, and it's just such a unique film. Not for the reasons Al Festa intended, as I will discuss later, because I've got some interviews with him that I think he was under the impression he was making a serious work of art.
I think so, yes. I've just got a little clip here just to give people an idea of the acting, and this is a scene. As you say, there's lots of cameos in this, and it's a little bit. I'd liken Al Festa to an Italian Rob Zombie, because for all his faults, what he's done is he's obviously a fan of these films, and so he goes to a lot of the kind of genre stars and people who are famous from yesteryear and invited them into this film, which a lot of people, unless you were a big fan of Italian genre movies, some of them you wouldn't know. But Alida Valli, who was a very famous actress in the 1940s and 50s in Italy, not known for horror movies until later, but she was in Suspiria and also Inferno, and she plays a blind countess, sort of psychic blind countess in this. And Stefania Stella takes Alex Ritt, and her boyfriend to this kind of mansion where Alida Valli is, and then they have this kind of slightly esoteric conversation, and here it is.
Christ, that woman's frightening. She gives me the creeps. This is a weird situation.
Even when she says something that makes no sense, She's actually trying to dig into you, to explore you. You should look at yourself with the same blind eyes, and perhaps you will find something that you never knew about yourself.
What are you trying to say?
Nothing.
She sounds like the maid from Family Guy. I need more lemon pledge.
I just like the fact she goes off on this diatribe, and then he says, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Nothing."
Yeah,
nothing.
How old do you think she was in this film?
I would say she was late 30s.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, because she could have been. I think when my review I wrote on Hysteria, she could be anything between 30 and 90. I thought it's a bit like she kind of reminded me of seen those photos of Jackie Stallone. She's got she's had plastic surgery recently, and she was out in a kind of split cut skirt with a leg out, and she's in her 90s, and she looked a little bit like Stefania Stella. Nobody's ever seen them in the same room.
True. Yeah, you put a picture up on the Hysteria Lives or Hysteria Continues Facebook of Stefania Stella, and to me, she really reminded me of Marge in Halloween 3 after she's had her face blasted off with the silver shamrock microchip.
Oh dear, yes.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yes, Fatal Frames. I kind of actually enjoyed it a lot more this time than I did last time. I think because I knew what I was in for. So I was able to revel in the cheesiness of it. But I mean, Joseph, could you watch it again?
Oh yes, I'll do Eric one better. I loved Fatal Frames. I think it's one of the most gloriously bad movies you'll ever watch. I don't care how long it is. I could have watched it twice in a row. I'm serious. I'm not being ironic. I really did love it that much. I mean,
yay.
It's so self-indulgent. It's stylish, but I mean, it's so self-indulgent and self-important. And, Eric said everyone looks like a member of Color Me Bad. I think everyone looks like Fabio. I kept expecting him to say, "I can't believe it's not Bada," but they didn't. But, no, and this is like Stefania Central. I mean, this is a star vehicle for Stefania. And, I mean, you will see Stefania 99% of the movie. The countless pop video interludes of her just kind of writhing around, and she has a really nice body for her, but she has like a face only even a mother wouldn't love. She's pretty hideous. But there's one scene I laughed until I couldn't control myself. There's an expository scene where they're kind of giving a lot of exposition about the plot, and then all of a sudden, while they're still talking, it cuts to a shot of her just sitting there, and people are photographing her. And then later on, someone calls her and gets her answering machine. He's like, "Oh, hi, Stefania. I just wanted to check in on you because he might as well have said, you're not on screen right now, so we need to let everyone know that this is your film."
Yeah.
I love her answering machine, because whenever somebody rings it, they get this message. This is Stefania's answering machine.
Answering machine, yes. And there's one scene where they zoom in on Stefania really quick, and she's like, "I can't believe it."
I know. And, I love the scene that when they go into the bar when he meets Alex meets Linnea Quigley, and he's saying to the other guy, "Oh, you're a shit for putting me through this," and then out of nowhere, Stefania just appears talking to him. But every time they do a shot of her, they do it straight on, don't they?
So it's like they focus right on her and her like heaving cleavage,
looking straight at the camera, and and then she goes and she says something. She just appears like this kind of supernatural being, just ping, there she is, teleported in, and then she goes,
"Well, there is
ciao," like that.
There is something very not of this earth about Stefania Stella in general, I think.
Yeah. Yes. And what's funny is that that is her real name. Her character's name is Stefania Stella, but she actually used her own name. Her real name is Stefania Stella. I mean, how self-indulgent can you be? But I mean, aside from her, you kind of feel bad for Donald Pleasance. I mean, they superimposed a photo on the screen, and then they did that really tasteless Halloween gag just to kind of write him out.
And it wasn't even using his real voice, was it? He hadn't been looped.
No, it wasn't even his real voice.
I think there was one sequence where it sounded like it was his voice, like one sentence. But it wasn't his voice for the most part. And it does, because you're so familiar with, and he has such a recognizable voice, it just looks weird. It sounds weird.
And then they have that Angus Scrimm cameo that Erik was talking about, where he's really hysterical and his acting is really bad. I mean, wow, he really must have been in it for the paycheck. But to make you even sicker, Stefania does have a sex scene, so get your vomit bags ready for that.
In blue, it's just everything's completely in neon blue, isn't it? But she has sex with her underwear on, doesn't she? Did you notice?
Yeah, thankfully.
She's got like a little, got her panties on, and she's riding on top, throwing her hair around like this kind of massive kind of sort of black pubic wig flying around her head like a hurricane, and she's riding on top of this guy going and she's got her knickers on. So I don't know what's going on there, but
back to
crotchless, obviously
it could be. Yeah.
Back to the Donald Pleasance cameo. I think Erik might get this reference, but the way they wrote him out, it's almost like the Poochie scene. He's like, "I have to go. My planet needs."
Completely. Yeah.
So that got me to thinking, if they ever make a sequel to Fatal Frames and it's all about Stefania, I said Stefania should be loud in your face and have access to a time machine. And whenever Stefania's not on screen, characters should be asking, "Where's Stefania?"
This is all Simpsons references, Justin, in case you don't.
Yeah, no. So getting, but the thing that really blew my mind wasn't what was in this film, but what could have been, because I'm sure you both know, but Al Fester and Stefania Stella pitched an idea to make Halloween 7 with Stefania chasing Michael Myers.
I didn't know that.
Didn't you know that?
No.
Yeah, it's actually one of the background things I've picked up on the film.
Yeah, I won't say any more, but it was. Can you imagine how mind-blowing it would have been? You know the scene in Halloween. It was Halloween 7, wasn't it? When Busta Rhymes is in the Michael Myers mouth.
Eight.
That's Halloween 8.
Sorry, yeah. And he's kind of they dubbed him for the video release, because in the cinema release he's going, and it's kind of like really badly muffled in the Michael Myers mask when he tries to do a kung fu fight with the man himself. But you can imagine if you'd actually, instead of that, you'd had Stefania Stella bursting in like really tight jeans and a gun,
doing a pop video interlude to kind of subdue Michael Myers. What I read,
my sister.
What I read, Justin, was from apparently this is from an IMDb user named Red Midnight. He says Fatal Frames was finished in '96. Since then, the dynamic duo of Al and Stefania, two of the most humorless people known to man, have been trying to get various projects off the ground, including The Porno Killer, with Stefania as a cop who delves into the porn industry to find a killer, and thus she becomes a porno star herself. And then the Halloween 7 was Stefania pursuing Michael Myers, and Il Grande Lucia, the Padre Pio story. They were both quite a couple of characters who see all of their work as high art. How do I know all this? I had known them for a few years and visited them in Rome a few times. After 15 minutes, their loud, eccentric behavior was no longer amusing until their next project.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, I know.
So. And she's also known as Stefania Stella. She's also known as the Napoleonic Madonna.
In what way?
So, there you go.
Blimey!
Because she's a female singer.
I don't know, but
did you see one of her other roles was, because she didn't have very many?
Yes, would it be Gypsy of the Farts?
Gypsy of the Farts from Psychopathics, yeah.
Yes, which I haven't found yet, but
I watched the trailer for Psychopathics. It's actually, and I looked into it. It's actually a student film. It only runs for 40 minutes, and it's an anthology, and it features lots of cameos from recognizable people. But it looks awful from the trailer.
She didn't really go on to do anything after Fatal Frame. She did one called Rosanna's Grave, where she played a hooker, and then she just kind of disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Poor Stefania.
Poor Stefania.
Can I ask, does anyone know what was going on in that scene where the guy who looks exactly like Dario Argento was cackling insanely whilst burning a painting?
I know.
I thought that was Dario Argento.
I did it when I first saw it.
I don't know if it is, though.
No,
it looks just like him, though.
Yeah.
It was obviously a nod.
Maybe it was him, and he's the only one who had the good sense to take his name off the film.
Yeah. I just wondered if it's a nod to, because you had Alida Valli in that scene, didn't you? Well, and there was the kind of the mute manservant in Suspiria, wasn't there? Who had a similar look. You know, the really toothy one who was kind of like really creepy looking. But I when you actually get to the end of the film, which I mean, are we going to give the revelation of what all this is about?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Okay, so who wants to do that?
You go ahead.
Me, okay, right. Well, I try and put it. Basically, the genesis of the story is there's someone called the Video Killer who videos the murders, the bodies actually of murder victims, and sends them to the police. And there was a spate of these in New York a few years ago. And Alex, who is a guy who was a Troma regular, wasn't he? I think he was. Who was it? Rick Genasi. He plays the video director called Alex Ritt. And his wife was decapitated, and he becomes very attached to her stain on the carpet, where her bloodstains were. And essentially, he gets invited to Italy to film a video for Stefania Stella. And so when he goes over there and the video murders start again, someone starts killing women associated with the video shoot and filming the bodies. But the bodies vanish. The police can't find any bodies, but they get sent the videotape. And the gore effects, by the way, were done by Steve Johnson, who I think he was married to Linnea Quigley at the time, because the gore effects are pretty good, actually, in this film. It's one of the better things about the film. And so one of the puzzling things is, where are all the bodies? And what it turns out is Stefania Stella, along with the father of Alex's dead wife, who is a Broadway director, who says he's the one with Stefania has this hilarious conversation, which is right at the beginning of the show, when he says, "You're young and you're beautiful and you've got the whole of your life in front of you." Now, how he kept a straight face when he was looking at Stefania when he said that.
And she says, and she also replies with a straight face, "Didn't you tell me I was a good actress?"
Yes. But you have to believe that essentially all the murders are not real. This Broadway director somehow has got this kind of, according to the film, knows how to make all these gore effects of women being attacked with machetes and half decapitated, which you see happening, but aren't real. And essentially it turns out that Stefania was masterminding this. And she didn't mind having sex with him, even though he killed her sister. Is this right? Was that because didn't she say that Alex's wife was his sister?
Yeah, she wanted revenge because she had the gun on him at the end, and the commissioner, I believe it was, or the inspector, one of those. He's like, "I know you want revenge, but don't shoot Alex. Just put the gun down, Stefania."
I don't think Alex's wife was her sister, though. I think one of his other victims was her sister.
I was going to say, because I would have thought Alex would have known if he'd had a sister-in-law like Stefania Stella, he would have known. But
especially if she looked like her.
Yeah, but all the women who were killed in the second part of the film, well, they were all related or were lovers or whatever of the women from the murders in New York. And so they all appear a little bit like the end of Maniac and come back, and he's kind of driven mad. And it's this whole idea to get him to confess to the murders. And there's quite an effective scene right at the beginning where a little boy comes in and finds his father watching a Super 8 film on a screen. And it's of a woman who's been, basically attacked with a machete and cut. A little bit like the kind of very disturbing kind of fake snuff scenes in Joe D'Amato's Emmanuel in America. It's kind of similar thing, and he makes the kid watch that, and it turns out that kid is Alex, and Stefania's plan comes to fruition. But quite why Stefania thinking that this man had murdered one of her best friends? But she said because she was best friends, wasn't she, with his wife? Because
that's the bit I couldn't understand. Yeah.
And then the father says, she wanted you to have this, and gave her a book. And then Stefania goes to her maid, burn it.
Yeah.
It's very convoluted.
It kind of doesn't make sense.
No.
So it's supposed to be a surprise ending, but at the same time, you're like, what?
Yeah.
It's one of those plots where it's like, wouldn't it have been easier to do X, Y, or Z?
I know, it's very risky,
This is kind of elaborate
it?
just to achieve, this particular goal of getting him to confess.
Yes. But so I mean, it is a bonkers film, but I think it must have had a relatively high budget, mustn't it? Relative, because it was kind of a lot of. It makes cinematography is pretty good, and it makes some.
I think it's very stylish. I mean, it's like I said, it's self-indulgent, but it's really well shot.
I mean, it makes use of some amazing locations in Rome. I would say that it makes better use of locations in Rome than Argento did in the Third Mother. You know, whatever it was, the Mother of Tears.
Mother of Tears, yeah.
Mother of Tears. It makes Rome look, you know, fantastic in a kind of 80s pop video kind of way. And it you know, even back in '96, it must have looked pretty dated, I would have thought, because it looks more like a companion piece with something like Lamberto Bava's Delirium, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, those kind of films which is kind of like take that kind of the red and blue gel filters that Argento and Bava were using in the 60s and 70s, and then really goes over the top.
Was that Photos of Gioia? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of over the top kind of sort of 80s kind of feel, and sort of you know, lots of dry ice and you know, high hair. But yeah, I mean, what can you say? I mean, Stefania Stella is one of a kind, and I wonder if she was. How old's this film? If this film was made in '96, so 16 years ago, so Stefania must be in a mid 40s,
mid to late 50s, maybe.
Yeah. So I wonder what she looks like now. And are you listening, Stefania? If you are, why not write in and tell us? She'll probably haunt our dreams now, won't she?
She's like the Freddy Krueger of the podcast.
Yeah.
But I would, funnily enough, I mean, it's a shame actually Nathan couldn't make this week, because I imagine Nathan would love this movie, wouldn't he?
Yeah. If he didn't, he'd be insane.
Yeah.
But well, that is Fatal Frames. I mean, you guys have got a bit more background on it, haven't you? Do you want to regale us?
Just what I read. I mean, that's all I had was just that whole spiel about Halloween 7 and the Stefania antics. But that's all I had. I'm sure Erik might have some more than I do.
Yeah,
of course, we'll play out with Eternal City. I
love Eternal City, yeah. In fact, I think Stefania should have just sang Eternal City on a loop to Alex Rich, and that would have gotten to confess. They could have just...
Yeah.
That would have been much more simple, wouldn't it?
She's like they call her the Napoleonic Madonna, but I'd say she's the Napoleonic Cher, and that's not saying a lot.
Yeah. But why Napoleonic? She's not French, is she? I mean, she couldn't be any more Italian if she tried.
I don't know. That's what it says on the IMDb. I mean, take that for what it's worth.
I saw
maybe
that
more
as well,
like the Mussolini Madonna.
I wonder if Alfesta had a sense of humor, because Linnea Quigley's name in the film was Wendy Williams, and she has the kind of Wendy Williams look.
I don't know.
Wendy O. Williams.
Who's Wendy Williams?
From what I can tell, it's
Wendy O. Williams from
Plasmatics.
Yeah,
Plasmatics.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, she's also I'm talking about the actress, the one who died, who was in the women in prison movies that Nathan picked.
Reform School Girls. That was Wendy O. Williams.
Was it Wendy O. Williams?
Yeah, Wendy O. Williams.
Yeah, Wendy O. Williams. Yeah, her name is Wendy Williams in Fatal Frames, and she kind of has that look to her. So I wonder if Alfesta had a sense of humor, or if he was a fan of the film.
I don't know. Well, I think from what I could tell, and from what that comment was, they were famously sort of humorless. And I don't know, Erik, you might have. Do you?
Yeah, I'm looking at an interview here that Mitch Davis did with Alfesta in 1997. It's in a magazine called Diabolic, and he comes across as completely humorous, because Mitch Davis asks him, "I've heard that certain audience responses in Europe haven't been so good. You know that they laugh," and he's like, "The reaction of the audiences are different." The reaction of the audiences are always very good, even different in places. And he says, "Do you think they are maybe laughing to mask their fear? The film is not intended to make you laugh." Of course not. No, that's clear. So in your opinion, is it funny? Well, I heard that audiences were just, laughing a lot. No, the audiences are not laughing at all, actually. There's no comic relief in the movie, nowhere to be seen, not at all.
Wow.
So
he was getting kind of aggravated, I think. Apparently it premiered at the Bradford Film Festival in 1996, and people were falling around in the aisles laughing at it. And neither Stefania nor Alfesta could understand why.
I would love to see that on the big screen.
That would be amazing. Even better with them in attendance, turning around and tutting sort of like.
Yeah, but the general consensus at the time in all these various magazines I have, like Delirium and Jello Pages, was that people really enjoyed the film, but they did acknowledge the fact that it was shit. But everyone was saying, it's shit, but it's really enjoyable. Go see it. Nobody was slating it, as being worthless. So,
okay, well, so it's kind of gained a reputation as a kind of a really. I mean, it's like you say, you get, to be honest, when you talk about bad movies, this is a bad movie, but it's an entertaining one. There's nothing worse than a bad movie that's boring, and even at 2 hours, there's always a bit of Stefania around the corner just to cheer you up, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah, I felt that it didn't feel like 2 hours. I mean, I felt like, I could have watched it again. I would rank it up there with Nail Gun Massacre as far as bad movies go.
Oh, really?
I got a big kick out of this film. I liked it a lot for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I'd put it sort of fairly close to Bloody Moon myself.
Oh, really? Okay, so it's high praise.
High praise indeed. I love there's a scene in it where it's the scene where Stefania is talking to the murdered girl's father.
There's a scene with Stefania in the film?
Wow. There is. She's talking to Mr. Fairbrain, which I think is great because it sort of rhymes with hairbrain. She's talking to Mr. Fairbrain, and she has some dubbed line, and you can hear somebody coughing in the background as if somebody in the dubbing studio had a cold that day or something, and they didn't bother to re-record it. It's really good.
Oh,
wow!
Yeah.
Wow, that is quite amazing, isn't it?
Maybe that's why she had a gravelly voice, because they had a cold.
I loved the scene. There's a great scene. You alluded to it earlier with how they basically they do one of those kind of classic giallo type things where they suddenly find something in a painting, or in this case in video footage, where they see the reflection or the shadow of the killer, and that's how they can see the killer's got a ponytail or long hair, and that's the reason you've got all the Fabio clones. But then of course it could also be Stefania.
I like how they have this technology that manipulates the shadow into revealing the ponytail.
Well, exactly. Well, that's the Alex, who's a killer anyway. He kind of he's obviously, he doesn't realise he's the killer, presumably, but he kind of takes a snapshot of the of Stefania's video with a silhouette of her hair and one of the killer silhouette of the hair, and then morphs them together in that kind of that sort of effect. Exactly from that time where you used to have faces morphing, one person's face morphing to another, which Al Fester does for every victim at the end of the film. So he was obviously in love with that, but it doesn't prove anything, does it? It doesn't, it's just like a shadow, a ponytail going into a shadow with long hair. It doesn't prove who the killer is at all. And the irony is the person doing it is the killer. But there you go. Yes. Well, that is Fatal Frames.
What a movie. What a movie.
Is there anything, I was just trying to think if there's, just trying to think if there's, what bit was this from?
And I want to keep it up for at least 12 hours, non-stop, if that's what it takes.
That's towards the end of the film.
Yeah.
I love that line. Yeah.
We used that in an earlier show, didn't we?
Exactly. That's where I found it from. I was trying to remember where
I used
it was
it
in the
in a
movie.
dialogue clip. Actually, in Recently Seen, when I saw Fatal Frames for the first time, I got you to play that clip. Okay. It stands out. And it's a great chat-up line.
It is, indeed. Yeah.
No, we actually used it in an intro at one point, I believe.
We may well have done. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain we did. It was from one of your picks, Eric, so I don't really remember which one, but for some reason that dialogue just kind of came out of nowhere, and I was like, okay.
Well, don't say we haven't done Fatal Frames before, have we? God, can you imagine we get to the point
I think we would remember.
Yes.
No, I definitely remember that. We should do it again because it's that good.
Exactly. Well, what kind of double bill? What kind of double bill could you have? Part of Fatal Frames and Les Insatiable's Poopy's Erotic is, where else could you hear double bills like that than the Hysteria Continues? So,
by the way, if Poopy's is spelled with two E's, then it means dolls.
Okay, it is.
Is it? It is. Yeah, it's
Sex
dolls.
Yeah.
So it's the Insatiable Erotic Dolls is basically what that translates as. So
that's not what we translated it to, though.
No, we didn't.
There's just one last bit of dialogue I loved in the film is where Mr. Fairbrain, who's the Broadway director, says to Stefania, "You'll be the leading lady in the funniest comedy." And I'm thinking to myself, she already is.
She already is, yes. Yeah. I remember that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, she's saying, I don't want to play a tragedy. There's enough tragedy. We've cried the last tear. Yeah. I want to...
I still love like every 5 minutes there's like this pop scene, and then I'm like, oh look, there's another music video with Stefania. This time she's in a fountain. Next time she'll be in a warehouse, and then on a bed, and then she's back to the fountain again. Well, Fabio is lifting her off the ground.
How kind of self-obsessed would you have to be to take someone home and have sex with them while your own pop video is playing in the background? Because that's what she does, isn't she? She takes Alex back and they have sex. They have like rock, pop music video sex with all like kind of blue light filters. But in the background, there's the Stefania Stella logo and her pop video playing on the monitors. So
which
would have had to say
Alibi, or was it Eternal City?
I can't remember, but she would have had to say, "Hold on a second, I'm just going to pop over and put my video on as a breast burst asunder."
It's an aphrodisiac. That song is an aphrodisiac.
It turns me on.
Oh yeah. There's two more things I want to mention. They might as well call the film Stefania. I mean, Fatal Frames. It doesn't really make sense when the whole film's about Stefania. But another thing I wanted to mention, I almost forgot about, is the DVD cover. It has the picture of that fake killer doll model, or whatever it is, that statue. When he attacks it at the end, and it's really fake. Why did they put that on the cover? It's not creepy at all.
I know, and it looks like a doll, and it was a doll, wasn't it?
Yep. Yeah. It's like a mannequin or something. It was
a poupée.
Poupée.
Gosh,
clever bringing that back, Eric.
I know. Poor Stefania. I mean, like you say, she's one of a kind, and those kind of sort of baboon butt lips of hers.
I think you were onto something. I think she is Jackie Stallone, because Stallone.
Wow. Oh, and like I said, no one's ever seen them in the same room together.
Yeah.
No.
So there you go.
It's like Clark Kent and Superman. She's like, Jackie Stallone is the Clark Kent and Stefania Stella is the Superman.
Nobody's ever seen Justin or Jensen Ackles in the same room.
No. It's just
coincidence.
Very disappointing.
Or Erik and guy from Rush Week. The big guy, photographer.
Oh,
yes. Well, is there anything else you want to say about Fatal Frames before we?
I love Fatal Frames. That's all.
I wish there was a soundtrack album.
Yes.
I wish there were like 20 sequels. Instead of releasing Paranormal Activity sequels, they should do Fatal Frames sequels every year.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you should try and track down Alfesta and Stefania and see, make it happen. Can you imagine Stefania Stella in Paranormal Activity 5?
She would be the Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being dragged around a house by her?
I don't even think about it.
Oh, boy.
Oh, well. Okay. There's probably more that we could say about that. One thing we didn't talk much about David Warbeck, but I thought he was actually quite good in this. He was probably one of the better. I mean, he was really chewing the scenery. But there were some scenes, wasn't there? Really bad, really recorded, even worse recorded than this show. And it was kind of really tinny, wasn't it? It was kind of sort of like this kind of really weird tinny voice. And you're thinking if they looped the film, why on earth did they allow that through? But anyway,
I read somewhere that when Donald Pleasance died in mid-shoot, they introduced the David Warbeck character then. He wasn't in the original script. But I don't know if that's true, because I think there are scenes where David Warbeck and Donald Pleasance are on screen together. I'm not going 100% sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure there are, actually,
Yeah. Right. Well, there you go. That is Fatal Frames. So you're either going to be rushing out to try and find it or rushing away from any copy that you come across. But write in and let us know. And on that bombshell, what we'll do is play contact details for the show. So write in. We'd love to hear from you. And here's how you can.
Hey, guys. Susie versus Toya Forever. Be sure to check out the-bodycount-continues.com/index/viewpage.php ? page_ID equals 126. That contains all contact information pertinent to the Hysteria Continues. And thank you for listening.
Oh, and personally, I don't have much of a horse in the Susie versus Toya race, but I have to let Justin and Erik think I do from one day to the next. That way they'll argue about it over and over. But this will be our little secret. Don't tell anyone lest I stab you to death with a glass unicorn. Have a nice day.
Who the hell was that?
What was that address again?
Yeah,
Actually,
Joseph,
I thought that was better than going through every single contact detail. So I just put it all on one page, and even the page URL is really long, so I couldn't win either way. So, I don't. But I'll cut out
wasn't you, was it? Was that your brother?
That.
Was that you?
Do what?
Who was that? It didn't sound like you.
That was me. Yeah.
That was it. Oh, it didn't sound like you. No, it sounded like it had been put through a filter.
No. I'm in a different room than I usually record in, so maybe it was a little different. I don't know.
Okay, right. Well, okay. Well, we'll right into the show. If you've
go to the extra long URL and you can figure out how to contact us, and I'll take out the Toya joke because I just I know you don't want to listen to that every single episode.
I can't believe you brought up, because like Erik put a picture of Susie and Stefania Stella on, said who's who, which I thought was very rude.
They were both.
I thought that was good. I thought that was good payback to the picture you had on the review of Anthropophagus, where he's listening to his headphones. He said, "Who popped in the Toya?"
Well, that hasn't gone live yet, but that will do soon. I'm working up to that. So yes, the eternal struggles.
Yes. For everyone.
And we'll come on to the Eternal City a little bit later. But feedback time. Have we got some feedback, guys? Have you got anything?
I got one. How about you guys? You guys got anything?
I've got one.
Okay. You want to go ahead and go first if you can.
Me? Okay. Let me. Okay. Well, this is from Terry in Belgium. And he says, "Hello, Justin, Erik, Joseph, and Nathan. This time my email will be shorter. Your non-horror movie top 3 was unexpected. I know you guys like me. I know you guys are like me. You like unknown or barely known slasher movies like The Prey, Humongous, or Movie House Massacre. However, regarding the non-horror movie, I didn't know what to expect you to quote movies like Jaws, which is my favourite movie of all time, and I do not consider it a horror movie, more of an adventure flick. Taxi Driver, Dirty Harry, the first one with Robinson playing the psychotic killer. The Good, the Bad and Ugly. God, I love that. For the dialogue, the music from Morricone, the cast, the directing from Leone, for everything. Goldfinger, Sean Connery is the best Bond to me, and maybe along with Daniel Craig. My choices do not show my age because I turned 36 the 31st of August, so happy birthday, Terry. I expected Erik to quote Dirty Dancing because I can be wrong. I think he's a fan. No, you are a fan, aren't you, Erik?
Oh, very much.
Yes. Otherwise,
Really?
about Cutting Class, I thought you had an audio interview, but I think you said that during the podcast for Cutting Class. But then again, I might be wrong. I think we did.
We were
have one lined
trying,
up.
and it fell through.
Yeah, it fell through. So unfortunately, a German podcast listener, I forget his name, sorry, gave you some good German slasher movies, and you saw The Pool, or was it Erik? No, we did see The Pool. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot recall, sorry, and yes, it is entertaining, but from the list he gave, I think Anatomy is the best by far. In terms of directing, cinematography, acting, art production, various murders, the screenplay is interesting, much more interesting than the one from The Pool, which is very generic. Now he says, now that said, I know Nathan is not a fan of science fiction. However, I strongly recommend him to watch the outstanding TV series Battlestar Galactica, not the original from the 80s. The very, very good TV series, one of my favourite TV series, along with The Shield, Magnum, Miami Vice, Law and Order, and Homicide: Life on the Streets.
Yay, The Shield.
Yes. Battlestar Galactica is a somber, dark, pessimistic, with no humour, of an adult tone, and very CGI effects very well done, and the soundtrack from Beer McCreary is amazing, very touching and emotional. I've heard very good things about Battlestar Galactica, the TV series. I haven't seen it. Have you?
No, but I've heard
people have recommended it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's supposed to be, it's like a soap opera in space or something.
Yeah. Okay. Terry just goes on to finish off, says, sorry to write about a TV series, but hey, you spoke about Dallas, so why not writing about a TV series? Talking of Dallas, have you been watching the new Dallas?
No,
I can't bring myself to watch it. So he says, I do not like the sci-fi productions, the network, they're crappy productions, except for this series and maybe Being Human and Grim. I've nothing to say about Movie House Massacre because I've not seen it yet. But he does go on to say, I hope you're reviewing Next of Kin, a.k.a. Return to Montclair. It deserves a long depth review and not just it's a good movie. I would agree. I'd love to do a show on Next of Kin because I think it's probably the best Australian slasher movie by far. So I agree with Terry on that. But yes, there's so much out there, isn't there? Maybe we could do a double bill of Australian slasher movies at some point.
The day after Halloween. Yeah.
Ooh. You wanted to do that one, didn't you?
I think Nathan actually really did want to do that one.
Yeah, gosh. Okay. I think it's probably... Because it'd be good to do something like, a really good one like about Next of Kin and then something like Ladies Stay Dead or something like that.
Or even maybe Shallow Grave or something. Shallow Grave, was it Australian?
No, it's British.
No, are you thinking the American slasher, the one with the three the girls?
Never mind.
Yeah.
All right, it's not the Ewan McGregor movie, no?
No, there's an American movie came out around about the same time, 1987.
That's what
Shallow
I'm
Grave,
about.
And it's kind of like 3 teenage girls or early 20-something girls being chased by.
We could do
a
Houseboat
sheriff.
Horror.
Yeah, I was thinking about Houseboat Horror. Yeah.
Oh my God, yes. Well, that would be horror, wouldn't it? Yeah. Well, why not? Why not? Okay. Well, thank you, Terry, and thanks for writing. It's always good to hear from you. Anything comments on what Terry said?
Yeah, I want to go back to the whole day after Halloween and Nathan suggesting that. I think it's kind of ironic that, he makes us sit through Crazy Fat Ethel 2 and Splatter University, but then when we get Fatal Frames, he's conveniently missing.
Exactly, exactly. And he would love Fatal Frames. I'm sure he would be all over that film like a rash. So, but well, thank you, Terry. What feedback have you got, Eric? Sorry, you haven't got any, Eric, have you, Joseph?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is from Soren Thompson. He's from Denmark. He says, "Hello, guys. I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your terrific podcast, which I enjoy tremendously, though I have not yet had the chance to listen to all of the episodes. I also want to congratulate Justin on Teenage Wasteland, which I just finished reading. I was particularly pleased with the references to Scandinavian slasher films, though I can see that Justin has yet to discover the wonderful world of the Danish slasher movie. To be fair, Danish filmmakers have rarely ventured into slasher territory, though the mid-90s did produce 3 quite successful slasher films. Perhaps most well-known abroad, Ole Bornedal's Nattevagren, I'm not Danish, so pardon the pronunciation, from 1994 features a killer who likes to scalp his female victims. It was remade by Bordenal in 1997 as the decidedly inferior Night Watch. Oh, okay, so it's Night Watch, the original.
Okay, yeah.
Starring Ewan McGregor and Nick Nolte. Secondly, director Martin Schmidt made Sid's Time, a.k.a. Final Hour, and Morkaleg, which can be loosely translated as Hide and Seek, in 1995 and 1996, respectively. The setup of both films is quite classic. While the former finds a group of high school students trapped inside their school during the weekend, being bumped off one by an unknown killer, the latter features 4 college students playing assassin in an old abandoned mansion. But of course, all is not what it appears, and soon people start dying for real. Both films follow the slasher formula rather closely, including the obligatory final girl and a killer seeking revenge for the past sins of his victims. Though Final Hour adds a supernatural twist to the gruesome proceedings. If you guys haven't seen these films, I encourage you to track them down. I would love to hear what you think of them, and I guess I'll add those to the list from... I guess I'm going to have to go through Baby Jesus because I doubt they're out on DVD.
I think the only one I've seen of that's I've seen the original Night Watch.
Yeah, I've seen that a long time ago.
Yeah, and I think I've seen the remake. I can't remember, but I remember the original Night Watch was really good.
Yeah, I definitely saw the remake. I didn't care much for it.
No.
But he says another thing. One of my absolute favorite proto slashers is the Spiral Staircase, which I've always thought must have been an inspiration for Black Christmas. Both films share important elements, including the setting in a large empty house, the drunken maid or house mother in the case of Black Christmas, and the creepy close-ups of the killer's eyes. I don't recall the film being mentioned in the Black Christmas podcast, so I was wondering what you guys think. And by the way, have you guys seen the brilliant episode of the Alfred Hitchcock Hour titled An Unlocked Window, which also shares certain features with the spiral staircase and has what must be one of the most surprising endings in television history. It was scored by Bernard Herrmann, for your information. Definitely also worth tracking down if you haven't seen it. Anyway, once again, thank you for all your brilliant work with the podcast. I'm really looking forward to the upcoming Halloween episode, which I guess we will mention that in a minute. All the best, Soren from Denmark.
Well, thank you, Soren. That's very good. Thank you for writing in. And I've Spiral Staircase, I think is a great film. Is it Robert Sidmark? And it's it's the film, isn't it, where the killer's killing anyone with a disability or a slight disfiguration or something, and it's definitely got some, and definitely proto-slasher leanings. It did get remade, didn't it, in the 70s with Jacqueline Bisset, I think, but I've not seen the remake, I don't think.
I haven't seen either, but I'm actually interested in that. I'm interested in the two films that he talked about, and I want to see the Alfred Hitchcock hour titled An Unlocked Window. That sounds kind of interesting.
That sounds great. Yeah, no, definitely.
So it's always good to look for, I guess.
Well, it's always good to hear from people who've got recommendations. So, no, thanks writing in, Soren and Terry. So, please do, you've got plenty of time. We're going to be, as the cat is out of the bag or out of the dirt tray, however we want to put it, is next time we are going to do our Halloween special, and we're going to do, because essentially Halloween 1 and 2 are, you could be seen as one long movie. You could have a 3-hour long movie, because it's Halloween 2 is more of the night he came home. We thought, well, why not do an extra special episode with Halloween 1 and 2, and especially in light of the recent release of Halloween 2 on Blu-ray by Shriek Show.
We are covering the Rob Zombie version.
Sorry, Scream Factory. Are we covering the Rob Zombie version?
Yeah, that's the ones we're talking about.
No, I am not watching.
No, I'm just kidding. We probably will end up bashing them at some point, though.
Yeah, I'm sure we all do. But we're going to do a special Halloween episode for next time. So, and with Jamie Lee Curtis will be joining us live for a chat.
On the set of her newest Activia commercial.
It would be lovely if she would, but I very much doubt we'll get her. But
I got to go pick her up from the glue factory, but she should be.
You stop that now,
Joseph, please. So, yes, well, join us again for Halloween. Is there anything we want to say, guys, before we wrap it up?
I want to say that I am going to be before I speak to you next, I'm going to be seeing the documentary that you have a credit on, Justin, Slice and Dice. It's playing at Dublin's Horathon on Friday, October the 26th. Now, unfortunately, it not only clashes with a double bill screening of Zombie Flesh Eaters and Deep Red on the big screen, it also clashes with a screening of Suspiria. So the sacrifices I'm making to see your documentary.
Well, I hope you enjoy it. And
do you know when that's going to be released in the States?
I don't.
It's coming out in March on DVD in the UK.
And what's it called again?
Slice and Dice, the slasher film forever.
Yeah, that's it.
And in the Horathon program here, it doesn't have a picture of Justin. It has a picture of Corey Feldman.
Does it? Well, that's not right, is it?
With his little rat's tail haircut.
They're really sticking it to you, Justin. How dare they put Corey Feldman above you? You're the producer on the film. They should.
Matron, take them away.
They stuck it to him good.
Yes. So, but yes, well, it's just the film or the documentary is just premiered at Stitches. I can never say Stitches.
You always get that wrong.
Not Stitches. Stitches without the first T. Sitches.
Well, why has it got a G in it? It's crazy Spanish.
Sitches.
Yeah.
Sit in a bowl of jizz.
So anyway, it's premiered there and apparently did very, very well. So and Callum, who's the main guy behind it, he said he saw the Maniac remake with Elijah Wood, and he said it was very, very grim. He said it was odious. So
that's what I heard from it was on a Fright Fest, and some people said it was actually surprisingly grim for a Hollywood remake. Yeah.
I was thinking it'd be good to make a good double bill with The Hobbit, which they release that next year.
They should have had Stefania Stella as the titular maniac.
Well, they might, because Stefania Stella is Gollum.
Yeah. Ooh. She kind of looks like Joe Spinell after he's been dead for like 20 years.
Oh, poor Stania. She wanted to make it big. And she did in her own.
She did on
bit.
our show.
She did in the booby department, but
she did in the booby.
She made it
and
big
the
on
hair
our
department.
show. We'll always remember her. She's the Susie of the podcast.
No, I don't think so. I think you're more on right with Cher. She's kind of like a cross between Cher, Jackie Stallone, and LaToya Jackson.
And the Cheeky Girls.
Yeah.
And the Cheeky Girls, yes. And, what a bundle of fun. But that was Fatal Frames and Slaughter Hotel. And we're going to play out with Stefania Stella singing Eternal City from the hit film Fatal Frames. And so thank
Nathan
you very much
will
for
be back
joining us.
next time. So if you're wondering where Nathan's at, he will be back.
Yeah. This one's for you, Nathan. With your golden burning angels, la 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 la.
Oh my God!
That's a little extract from Eternal City.
It is.
Wow,
and if
that
you're
was
still
as
listening,
good as Stefania's version.
Yes,
I know.
If you're still
That's
listening,
quite scary.
Before you play out, you noticed that the entire soundtrack was accredited to Stefania Stella and Fatal Frames.
And written by
That's a
Al
surprise.
Festa, the director.
Yeah, big surprise there.
Oh well, there you go. It's going to be back to relative normal of Halloween next time. But thank you for joining us for the Giallo Madness.
I'll sing Mr. Sandman next week at the end of the podcast.
Yes, that'd be good. Excellent. All right. Well, take care and thanks for listening. And see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
In your world there's thousand mirrors. In your world there's thousand. There's a magic in the air. In your whole enchanting square. In I'll see your love with your color burning.
So how are your nipples, Erik?
They are very good. My name is Stefania Stella.